Hello and welcome to episode 149 of the Imperial Truth. I'm Greg. Joining me, Mr. Howard.
Hello, Greg.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, ma'am?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Excellent stuff. Before we go anywhere, I ordered some plastic planes from Element Games at the weekend, and an Adeptus Titanicus book as well, because it's that whole extra 5% off. I know a lot of companies do it on that release weekend. You think, I'm going to get it anyway, so I might as well get it cheaper.
Well, and there's something about the excitement of a release like that. Particularly, there was a lot happening at once. It's all
Have
quite
you
exciting,
seen?
and if you get an extra little incentive, well, can't
Yeah.
say fairer than that, really, can you?
Have you seen Legalized Mischief on
I
Colin
did.
Ward on Twitter? Yeah, it's tall. The Thunderhawk is longer than a Reaver is tall
He
in
painted it in a
Titanicus.
particularly handsome colour scheme as well.
Oh,
Unfortunately, he did confirm. I had two choices with the canopy of mine, and he went the route that I didn't go down, and I think it looks better, which is
right.
always that little bit irritating.
Yes,
That you
indeed.
think, might have to try and work out how to repaint that. But it's huge, isn't it? I haven't
It's
seen
only
one in the
paint.
flesh yet.
No, neither have I. But it's only paint, as I heard someone
Yeah.
saying. Whatever you do, it's only paint. But yes, I had an offer from Element as well. Every now and then they do a little bit of an incentive, and it's not. I'm not going to say you're all going to get it, but I've heard of a few people getting it. So I did take the opportunity to go and get some. I spent far too much money.
That is the
on
issue
Age of
with those things.
Sigmar.
You just say, well, I can maximise the power of this discount.
Yes, and I've had basically like I like playing 40k in Age of Sigmar as thematic games, if you will. I don't really like. I'll go to an event. I booked up for an Age of Sigmar Warhammer tournament, big one on the south coast, but I'm not worried about competing. But I wanted to get a mega Gargant army for that because they're cool. I want to get some little Gargants running around with them, and I'm going to sell my Sylvaneth at some point. So if anyone wants a really well painted Sylvaneth army, I've got quite a large army to sell. And I've been looking at the old world with a mate quite a lot. Like, what would I do? What would I do? And there's certain things that I think almost all modern miniature games don't do like the old world did. That kind of slower build up, like allowing the game to maneuver and things like that. So I must admit, I added on some Graveguard. Oh, the Soulblight Gravelords starter set, army box deal, whatever. Start collecting. That's the one. Which I'm now waiting for some square bases so I can start painting them.
Amazing.
So yes, I thought I'd throw that on there. That came out a quite good deal actually for a load of Graveguards. So I was like, oh, they're still available at Element. So it adds up.
Yes,
even with good pricing, it adds up.
I did have one of those discount emails came through. The last one, because a friend of mine had it, because he wanted to get something, so I chucked in a few paints with him. But I searched for my own code because they're personalised, and I got mine in 2020. So they do come out every now and again. Just so it's like, I don't think it's linked to anything. It may be random that they do it, but when it does come out, it's just that nice little bit of cherry on top.
Yeah, it's just that little extra thing that they do. Obviously, there's reasons for them to do it as well, and incentivize you to go there. But that's they're a company. That's what they're supposed to do. So Element Games, yep, just throwing out good service again, and it makes me laugh that on a Monday there's a couple of shops that good shops, but they retweet people getting their stuff on the Monday, and I'm like, yeah, mine arrived like 12:30 on a Saturday just before I got home from work, and it's there on the Saturday result. Absolutely brilliant.
I think my friend and I ordered on the Friday.
Yeah, so did I.
It was with me Saturday morning. It wasn't pre-orders in this case, but it was essential paints for the hobby weekend.
Absolutely.
That's
the beautiful thing. If you can remember to get in early enough, it just before they're cut off on a Friday, and it turns up on the Saturday, it's like, oh, it's easier than going to the shop. Like,
it's dangerous, isn't it? Yeah,
it's good. Not having to wait that extra few days is cool. Brilliant. Yeah, Element Games. You can click on the show notes, click on the link in the show notes, or use the banner on the website, and help support the show. And then cool. Buy all your toys.
Yeah. And there's plenty of them at the moment, that's for sure.
Aren't they just non-stop? And we're going to get keep an eye. 6 o'clock on a Sunday, I'm always on GW anyway, seeing what's coming
It's
out the
become a
next
little
week.
ritual, hasn't it? I can't. I
Yeah,
do the same.
absolutely.
I'm sort of looking at it partly because Sunday evenings are a bit crappy, and as you sort of looking at it, and you're just thinking, oh, 6 o'clock. I wonder what's out today.
Exactly. Even if I know the chances are I'm not that interested in it, it's like just keep in
There,
touch.
there was a
You know.
point where I was quite hopeful that I wouldn't be that
Yeah,
interested. There was a
exactly.
point
Yeah.
playing multiple game systems. It was like, oh, it just got
It's
a bit
killer.
relentless after a while. But there
Especially
has
if you
been
read as well.
oh goodness me. Oh yeah, well yeah. The wait for Warhawk was. I'm thinking when do you start going to action stations? Start worrying about it. But
Yeah.
that's fortunately, I think the releases that particularly apply to me, there's been a bit of a break, which has been sort of welcome
Well,
in some
it
ways,
will
but
never
I'm sure it'll
last.
ramp up again. No, exactly. It's
Exactly.
going to come round
Yeah,
again.
I was saying we're approaching that holiday period where it always amazes me, like the people who are actually quite experienced in this hobby, who are like, oh, we're going to get a big Christmas release, and it's like, I mean, we could do. This GW, modern GW, they do throw surprises, but generally their big release comes in November, and their Christmas releases are bundles of terrain and start collecting and other things like that, um, which are just as dangerous because then you're like, oh, that Tyranid army that I keep thinking about a Tyranid army, which I'm not going to do, but there's just that little hankering to do one, and then you just know they're going to release a really good Tyranid box set deal
I
that's
didn't know
great
you
value.
were. I didn't know that was a thing. Is that actually a thing? Is that a thing
It's just this
you've been
small.
tempted by?
I'm not that bothered by Tyranids, but just like about 4 or 5 months ago, I just started getting this hankering for like. I think it's because I built them. I used a couple of flying hive tyrants for my demons,
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, like an army of like some really cool big Tyranids would be awesome. And yeah, but it's a lot of painting. I think I was a
I'm a
little bit.
sneaky fan of Tyranids. Yeah,
Well,
for years. It was when they did that big range redesign, when they did the first
yeah.
round of like Gaunts and Warriors. I was in. I mean, that was years ago now,
Mm.
but I was a big fan when that came out, and they've
I
only
think
improved.
I think part of it is you can do one whole color for everything that's not the carapace, and then the
Yes.
carapace, and then that's the whole body done, except for like the weapons and claws kind of thing. If you want to, like with contrast now,
Oh, and similarly, airbrush lends themselves to it. You
yeah,
can rip through
exactly.
them now in the way that I couldn't when I was 15.
Yeah, a little bit like lizardmen in that they'll take the contrast really well.
Yes, they
But
will.
the
Good
difference with
point.
lizardmen is like if you have skinks, they're a pain. Whereas if you've
Yeah.
got gaunts, they're not as bad
No.
because there's not that much extra bits on them. But yeah, so Tyranids is it's one of those things that I'm like every I don't know every so often I get I should really do one of those armies and it fades after time
You
because I'm like
just
no.
sit on it for a bit. Going, oh,
No.
can't do it.
Well,
Can't do it.
luckily we had a reveal at the weekend,
Didn't we just?
which kind of made me like I immediately put on our group like who's going to get the the Gene Stealer cult box with me so I can have the Custodes, and you can have them. And a mate was like, definitely. I'm like, with a new book, I'm in for fun, 40k. It'll be great. And then we both, by the Tuesday, we both were like, oh, we only actually want the character. We don't. We've got enough of the other stuff, so
Yeah.
we'll either wait or pick it up on eBay for a lot less.
Yeah, this is
um,
the thing with those boxes. If you're mid collecting an army or just want to expand, then fine. But it's
yeah,
yeah, it does have that moment, doesn't it? Of like,
and
well, is that
I've
super essential? No, not really.
I've said it before on here, and a mate swears by it, Mr. Wytech, but like unless it's a definite purchase for an army, like if they bring out um I don't know, something for 40k, but like they turn Logan Grimnar Primaris, like I'm getting it. But otherwise just wait a month,
Yeah,
because if you still want it in a month, then there's a good chance you want it. But
yeah,
there's a lot of times when you're like, no, I've moved on, next.
yeah. That
So
initial weekend thing is
yeah,
it is a big draw.
that's
When
why
there's
GW do
when
it.
there's hype
That's why
going around
lots
it.
of
Yeah,
companies do it.
and well,
It's
understandable, and it works. It
sensible,
works,
yeah.
and I'm all for it, and I'm all for hype. But it's when it
Yes.
involves expenditure, you have got to occasionally just think those things through.
Yeah, indeed. So you've been hobbying?
I have, and I'm hobbying while we speak. Actually, I've just got
Good
some
man. We could hit.
Sekhmet
I
on
heard
the
some
bench.
scraping.
I've got some Sekhmet on the go here.
Cool.
It feels appropriate to do that mid show. I've
Sure.
got my Thousand Suns on the go, although as a direct result of seeing a particularly well painted Ultramarines force go up on Heresy Trading the other
I
day,
saw you comment.
which oh dear, it was painful because I was thinking this is For so many reasons, this would be a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And yet, it is such a nice army. I don't actually know if it's gone, which is also dangerous. I hope,
You're
in a
hoping
way, I
it's
hope it
gone.
has. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm now tempted to do a little force with them. I've also got in mind to. Oh, well, what I've actually done is paint the Aeronautica stuff. The
Good
Aeronautica
man.
stuff that got them done. They're going to be for 30k type theme thing. Great. Actual Age of Darkness stuff. I've been doing my Thousand Suns. I've got them based. Well, I've got 20 tacticals based, tactical/veterans, a command squad of Tartarus Terminators, the Praetor, and I'm now going to do some Sekhmet, and I've started prepping, and my goodness, is it a lot of prep, a armoured Proteus and
Nice.
a Rhino. Those are quite the kit, aren't they? Wow.
Yes, indeed. That's cool. It's a lot of
So it's
good
a lot
stuff.
sort of going on, but it's all sort of
Yeah.
it's grabbing bits and pieces at a time when I can. You've finished some models, I believe. You painted
Well, I finished a
to
Bellicor.
completion. That's quite a model, though.
A Bellicor is a great model. I have second Bellicor. I've painted him. I just need to paint the base, which will take me a few nights to do because it just does. So yeah, that's good. That's getting my
It's a
Demons of the
solid achievement, I
Runestorm.
think.
Sorry.
That's a solid achievement. Have you got much more for the demons to do?
Uh, I mean, yeah, there's like I could rebase a load of stuff as well. I've got some. I've got about 20 blood letters to do and a character to finish. They're like half done, and then decide what I'm going to do around that because I want winged brutes, but they don't really release the model, which I really want them to do. So, the question is, do I look for different types of brutes?
It does seem to have
Um,
been an extraordinarily long time for that
they
model.
well, I
Are
don't
they
think
not
that
going to release it?
that could well be the case. They'll be expensive. The brutes are expensive by themselves. Like brutes are not a cheap unit for three
Mm,
of those dudes, and I want more of those non-winged ones as well. When you add two what will be quite large wings to them that were in that
yeah,
picture, then you're going to add another like 7-8 quid to a model or something like that. They're going to be, you're getting up to it's like parting money for jet bikes at that point. You're looking at
ouch.
the points you pay for the model in game and whatever, and you're looking at I can't even remember how much brutes are now. Let me have a little look, man. Look stuff
I
up.
like that your mind has erased that. Just it's too painful.
Yeah, they are expensive. Well, it's not too painful, but the problem is finding. So this is the problem I've talked about with Demons of the Ruined Storm before. Um, I'm having trouble getting through the capture. There we go. Is is finding models that represent finding a range of models that has big models and small models that all work together is really hard
It's quite
without doing
such a
work.
range of the models as well. It's not
But
just
it's
big and small. It's like really big from like
yeah,
super
through
size
to
to
and to
a
cavalry
whole.
and to
Yeah,
beasts and to all this other stuff without I'm not a very good converter. I can't be bothered to jump into all that. So like another thing I need is I wouldn't mind some winged bloodletters at some point. I have got the
okay.
Furies, but collecting Furies you have to buy them with the other War Cry beasts, so you end
Yes.
up like wasting half the money. Um, so yeah, finding a range that fits all that is really tricky, unfortunately. And the brutes from like the brute-ish models that I could use from Mercia really don't fit with the rest of my stylings for what I want for the army. So who knows? But okay, 3 Ruinstorm Demon brutes. Can you guess how much they are?
I'm gonna say so. Three of them. I'm gonna say 50 quid.
78.
Oh, oh,
Yeah. All right. So they're
yeah.
expensive. Like it's hard to
I mean, they're
justify that
really
cost
nice, but
anyway. They are
wow.
really nice, and I will get more for that army. But I do want some winged ones, and you add winged ones on, you're going to be 100 quid at least for 3
Yes, I would have
models,
said so.
at
Yeah.
least. So I think you might up be near jetback bike. Excuse me, jet bike prices.
What are jet bikes
What are
these
they
days? Are
36
30,
each?
30?
Are
Yeah, I
they
was thinking
something
36,
like that?
30, 36. Yeah.
Yeah. So £30 each for a scimitar. So maybe 34 for the golden Keshik. So yeah, they'll probably be over 30. I would have thought
Yeah.
because they're decent sized wings as well. But really nice models. So there might be a big question of is it worth doing them, which is understandable but frustrating as hell. So anyone at Forge World,
when
if
they
you're
were so
listening,
nice as well. Yeah.
oh, they were beautiful, and it was a long
Yeah.
time ago as well. So, it is what it
That's
is.
the only bit that's surprising. It's just the amount of time. I mean, they might be
Well,
waiting
yeah,
for a
but then
slot.
like
But
the Atamantic Purveyors, the like I know they had weapon packs for Myrmidons, but they couldn't find a price point to make it work. Is basically what Tony said. I'm
interesting.
like, that's ridiculous because I'd pay over the odds for them because I don't want to convert. Um, you
Yeah,
know,
but how many people are like that?
quite a few, I think.
Enough. Yeah.
Yeah,
As long as it's enough, who cares?
but
Yeah.
it's it's if they're in the molding machines, then other stuff isn't it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's all got to work out. So frustrating, but nature of the beast. And I keep getting ideas because the demons are so like because you've got six etheric things. You've got one for each god, general, and the anti-god one, haven't you? So
Yes.
six different. Like, and I'm like, I've done a corn one or a not corn one. I could easily look at me doing a different one. It's like, oh, this way danger lies.
This is the yeah. I was going to say this is how it starts.
The only good thing for this is I could use a lot of this stuff in Age of Sigmar. Um, some of the bases don't fit. I'd
Well,
have to
and 40k presumably.
yeah, and 40k to a point. Yeah,
I mean,
and
the
they wouldn't be
demons have always
competitive,
traditionally been the ones. No, but that's as you say,
but
you're
who
driving
cares?
more a
Yeah.
narrative anyway. Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, I've got second Bellicor here, so I've got because I can't be bothered to have one and like add and remove wings and have magnets showing. So I just thought stuff it. I'll buy one with and one without.
So
And
is that the project on the bench at the moment?
one of them, yeah. There's a load of
One
other
of
stuff around here.
this is the issue.
Heresy-wise, yes. I found years ago I bought an ogre army off someone who did me a very good deal. Guy called Mike on Twitter. He earns well, and when he gets rid of stuff, he's like, just get rid of it. So I bought a massive ogre army for a few £100. Not even a few, I don't think. And managed to look. I was looking through the bits box. I was like, oh, there's almost a whole gargant in there, and I've got a spare gargant sprue for the rest of the bits, like leftovers from when I made the other one. Brilliant. There's a whole gargant. I saved myself money on. Yeah, there's too much stuff. I'm trying to. Me and a mate want to do a crusade campaign just between the two of us, a real storytelling.
You've mentioned
Black,
this, yeah.
Black Legion. So I'm all the time. I'm like, I really should get around to painting those suppressors for my Space Wolves and stuff like that. And then, and then there's always like I look over at my Titans that need painting, and I'm like, must paint AT Titans so I can go to events with them if I need to. So that's a project that needs to get done as well. But like I say, until the what will really help is when this room gets sorted out. But it's hopefully before the end of the winter, we'll have an idea of we'll be almost there. So who knows? Although I've got to move that big display cabinet, it's a pain in the rear. But hey, there'll be more stuff on the shelf by then because we had a Warhammer preview show.
We did.
So yeah, that just quickly. What do you think of the Custodes dude?
I think it's really good, actually. I think the photo that they took of it didn't really do it immediate justice. It's only when you start to see some of the multiple angles and seeing it in person, particularly when you get the sense of the size of the sword that he's with him.
Big sword.
And the point they've made is that he's a more dynamically posed model, as opposed to most of the other custodians, which they did, where they deliberately put them in kind of guard-like, stoic stances. I'm quite a fan, and
What's
interesting choice to
interesting
use the lighter armor.
Yes, indeed. So he's got like the Venator and
Venatari.
a Venatari style. So he's got less armor on the bottom half, which is kind of cool. It'd be really interesting to see
I
how
think it's cool. It seems the rules seem pretty good in 40k. Seems like an interesting range of stuff.
But it's just a nice new model to have. Like if you want to mix up your Custodes, it's another cool model to have in, and you never know, they might even throw some rules at us, which would be nice, wouldn't it, if they put an exemplary battle in or something. You could just throw some rules in because there's a model there. So
quite.
That will be cool.
And just a general variety character thing, I think, is always a nice thing to have, even if it's either within a squad or even as a leader character. I think it's cool.
But the big thing we got was the usual. I think we talked last time about what we thought might be in there.
I mean, as we've said, as you're very clear on this, and very you have a strong mind on it, very sensible-minded thing of don't don't expect.
No, hope without
Hope
expectation.
fine, but don't expect. Don't expect them to announce this. Everyone was hoping they might, but as we talked about, the timing didn't seem quite right.
No,
because with the release of that magnitude, obviously we're talking
there
here
was
about Heresy 2.0, they would have done teasers and all sorts.
Yeah, there was the chance for it being the Khan, and it was, and the video was fantastic.
Yes.
Really built up. As soon as they showed a Primarch, I was like, yes, we're getting the Khan.
Which is still exciting.
It's
still
super,
exciting
super cool.
seeing a Primarch released.
Yeah, what was interesting? What was the last line in it, or something like the storm?
There will be more, or something like that.
Yeah, so it's interesting because obviously a lot of people are like, "Where's the bike?" Again, I've said before, I didn't expect them to release it with a bike initially, like as you could only buy it with a bike because you can't buy Rust with the Wolves because of a price. Basically, it was a price thing. Magnus didn't come with his base. Sanguinius, you can't even get his base.
No, it was you might be able to in Warhammer World.
Yeah,
maybe,
but it
was a very limited release initially, and then it was only going to be
Warhammer
World.
And that's a pricing thing, right? Because it costs a lot more. So I think the bike. I mean, I could be wrong. They might not release a bike, but I think that could be.
I think a bike's a hard one, actually. I don't know how they're going to do it because that model, you can't just put it on a bike.
No.
So what do? Do they release it as a bike by the side? It almost needs to be a variant model.
Yeah.
And it will be an expensive
Yeah, which they could do. Yeah. But then you've got the choice then. Because also, I don't know. Because actually, it'd be interesting what size base they put it on. But they've got, if they were to do a variant model, they can just take the top half of this guy. In fact, his legs are fairly spread out as well. But they could just take the top half, put it on a new designed bottom half. This was Sam Egan, all digital. He did the whole thing on this model.
All digital.
So with Sanguinius, he did Sanguinius. Someone else did the cloak. I want to say someone else did the base.
I thought someone did the wings.
Wings, sorry, yeah. Someone did the wings and someone else did the base. And there's been other models where it's been one main person. I was actually going to look up and try and remember who did each of the Primarchs. I forgot to do it. Damn. I'll try and remember as we go through. But yeah, this was all Sam, and he'd been playing with digital for a while, and this is all digitally sculpted. Yeah,
I think it's superb. Personally, there was a genuine. I mean, there was a few of us watching it at the same time. I think we all reacted the same way. Like, oh, wow, okay, this is cool.
I'm not like it's an aesthetic thing. It's not necessarily like some people say they love the pose. I'm not like the pose doesn't scream to me like amazing. The legs, I think, is for me, but that's not, that's just a choice thing, as it were. And some people love it. I love the cloak. I think the cloak is amazing, and the detail on the armor.
I kind of just can't wait to see the model in real life. I think to see it in front of us, I think will make a huge deal. I think
absolutely.
I think it's absolutely nailed the look. I thought.
Yeah, that's cool. That's each to their own, isn't it? Someone was complaining about the face, and I was like, "You what?" I mean, he's got a bit of a 5 head, but then he's got a top knot pulled back, so you're always going to have a bit of a 5 head. But the scar, the red scar paint, the face looks amazing. I thought.
Yeah, because he's got it appears to have the scar under the left eye, I think. But the armor is extraordinary. I mean, it really is. And this is the level of detail is just off the chart.
3 years ago when I was talking to Sam, when he was getting designs together, he was like, the intricacies of the armor and stuff, and he had just had so many different Oriental, Eastern influence kind of design pictures, looking at drawing from various cultures. It's fantastic. It's
it really
super cool, and it's not going to be this year. It's going to be early 2022, but then that's within a 3-month window, so it's sensible.
Yes,
we know.
I'm slightly surprised at that. I would have thought they might have brought that out this year.
I thought they probably wanted to.
Okay. Just a capacity thing, or perhaps.
Yeah, we don't know
thing.
at the end of the day.
We never will.
No, so yeah, we don't know when it was finished, and we don't know what's gone on, and whether they've decided to just spread things out, move things around. Uh, but yeah, no, he is fantastic.
And that means we now have a complete set. There's
We
something
have
just the
complete.
completionist in me. That's just kind of cool.
Yeah, which leads on to what's next. So a while ago they did say that the plastic 40k Primarchs are the 30k Demon Primarchs. So essentially they wouldn't do a Mortarion because they have a Mortarion, and in fact in Warhawk he's described much like that.
Yes, and the artwork
Magnus as well.
is that. Yeah.
Obviously we don't at the moment have a Angron or a Fulgrim,
No.
but I mean, I think 40k. I think they'd be idiots not to do that in time, anyway, and I think they know that. I think
I think
they're just
it's
spreading
just a
out.
matter of spread out the release, and
Yeah,
why would you
you
rush
don't
them?
want to release 4 Primarchs in a year. That's a bit silly. Um,
There's a suggestion that next year is going to be it's rumoured that next year is going to be very chaos heavy, and there's talk of
yeah,
World Eaters being
there's
in the
been talk of World
mix.
Eaters for 2 years, to be
Yeah,
fair.
true. Yeah, which it
So
may take that long to do that kind of design work.
I heard talk of January 2019
Yeah,
for World Eaters. But who knows? I mean, that might have had an element of truth to it. Who knows? Like they're
yeah.
going to do them. They're going to do like, yeah, it's going to happen. They're going to
I
redo
think
these things.
plastic
So
lends itself to that as well. I think the
yeah,
plastic kits with what they can do now with plastic kits, I mean, you just got to look
oh,
at what they did with
absolutely,
Sigmar and
yeah,
what they've done. I mean, Mortarion is superb. So
yeah.
interesting then that they're not doing that, because there was a weekender or a seminar years and years ago before those
Originally, yeah,
plastic kits came out, and they were like, "Yep, of course we would want to do different versions of these."
yeah,
Horus, I think we'll see. I don't see
yeah.
them. I mean, they can. Why would they release a plastic
So there's,
kit?
so yeah, and this is the thing, right? There's been a desire to talk about Horus Ascendant.
Mm.
Um, so Curse doesn't make it. Perturabo doesn't change before the end of the
No,
heresy.
no, he's much the
Um,
same.
who else we got? Lorgar's not around and doesn't really change.
You
Who
could
else is there?
do an empowered Lorgar. I don't think they will, but you could do one.
But that's not part of the heresy. Like
No, I don't mean
he's
demon version, but he's got his two versions in the rules, hasn't he?
transfigured,
That's
but
the
he's
guy.
still Lorgar.
Indeed, that's why I don't think
So
they would
so
bother.
physically,
Yeah,
I don't. Whereas Horus, like he swells with the power.
yeah,
And they talk about that, and he changes, and he is bigger and everything else. So
yeah,
we've got the four Chaos Gods: Horus, Lorgar, Kurz, Alfarius. Is not going to need another model, I
no,
would assume, and Perturabo. So Horus is the only one who really changes. So unless they go for a completely different like take on some other things, which could happen, but I'm not sure. So you've got
I
Horus,
wouldn't think you wouldn't risk it
Malkador.
from a sales point of view. Malkador's an
No,
obvious one. Yeah,
Malkador is an obvious one, and the Emperor, because they're going to want to do. Well, I think again, it was said a long time ago. It was like, how could you do the Horus Heresy and not have the two
yeah,
characters from the final scene of the Heresy? And we got that foreshadowing or the future proofing that
yeah. In
you know
the in the is it book 7?
yeah the thingy has to be unless the
Galdor
warlord
must be the
unless the
general
emperor.
unless the emperor's present.
It's not that actually. It's not quite that because this came up
Ah,
in the event because you can have, or you could have, according to when the rules came out initially, Janisha Kroll as the general.
okay.
It's something else. Yeah, it's like yeah. But yeah, essentially, yeah, there was a line like that, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head
Either
now.
way, whatever it
But
was,
yeah,
it mentioned the
the
emperor
Emperor,
as a character
indeed.
in an army.
And
Yeah.
why would they not? I mean, like, it will sell like Billio.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So yeah,
So that's an obvious thing, but it's not quite as wide ranging then as one thinks.
no, because again, the Imperial Primarch shouldn't change. Um, I don't think they'd update any models
No, I wouldn't have
in that
thought so.
respect, or do other. I mean, you never know. They could just go character series. Okay, we've got we've got Fulgrim in this pose, or no, so we've got Dawn in this pose. Maybe we do him in a different pose. But I
It
think
just
they'd
doesn't
just
sound
prefer
right.
to
Even
do
saying it
something
doesn't.
else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just
they'd
don't think
prefer
you
to
would.
do character series model of named person from Siege. Like,
Yeah.
could you imagine collecting, like in Lord of the Rings, collecting like the kill teams from Saturnine?
Oh, it'd be superb,
That
wouldn't it?
that kind of thing you would think would do better. So
Yeah.
yeah, cool. Yeah, we've got the Khan. That's another step forwards, which is awesome.
It is,
Frankly,
and a nice bit of completionism.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, and as you say, it'll be good to finally get that into people's hands to see what they do with it and how it works. But fantastic model, so
Can't wait to
cool.
see some of the paint jobs for that.
Yeah, it's going to be really good, really good. And we've also
No other
had
new releases yet, I don't think.
no, no, we didn't. Did we get a
No Legion Dispatch.
Legion Dispatch? No, we didn't, do we? But that's fair enough if they've shown
Yeah,
off
fair
the
enough. It's a
Khan.
major release, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
They just said regular, didn't they, for Legion Dispatch? There's no,
Yeah,
you can't
we did
expect.
have an exemplary battle.
We did, which is what's it called again? It is
It's the Iron
the
Warriors, but what is it called?
oh
It's a
my
good
word,
question.
my mind's gone blank on the title. The Siege of Hydrocortus,
Oh
Sundering
yes.
of what do you call it? So this is Iron Warriors and Imperial Fists, and what's nice about this one? So this is the where are we? Sorry, bear with me.
Where is
Computer's playing up.
Hydrocordatus? Because there's here we go. It's by Cadia, right? Okay.
Sundering of the Cadmean Citadel. That's the one.
Okay.
So this is them assaulting the Imperial Fists on the world of Hydrocordatus. And this is early on, before Perturabo has settled in with his Iron Circle, and he has a unit of a bodyguard unit of Terminators. What are they called again?
The
The Dominator
Dominators.
cohort.
Yeah.
Indeed, I like this. I the my 30k army of always wanted to do them is a little Iron Warriors force,
Yeah.
a loyalist probably, but used as either. And I just this makes me want to do pre-heresy Iron Warriors force more.
Mhm.
Uh,
I thought
275
they
points.
framed them really well. I really
Yeah,
did. I thought this idea of them becoming the idea of them having an arc and becoming these very embittered, which is
yeah,
particularly apt for
yeah,
Iron Warriors,
absolutely.
of course, and then they just double down on it and like actually these are guys who are dishonored but are still hyper dangerous. It's quite
Indeed.
cool.
So 0 to 1 elites or as a command squad for Perturabo. 275 points for 1 wound Terminators and Cataphractite Terminator armor. Cool, whatever. Remembering that if they are well, we'll get onto that in a minute. They are all characters, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And people, I think, forgot about that. So you can look out Surfer if you've got different weapons in the squad and things like that. Limited because of only 1 wound, but that's fair enough. All come with a Thunderhammer. And Combi
Yeah, that was
Bolter
quite
as
a big move,
standard.
wasn't it? Yeah.
Indeed, implacable advance. They're stubborn. Hatred of cybernetic cortex is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And they can have up to 5 more for 40 points each. 1 in every 5 can have a flamer, autocannon, or multi-melter. Multi-melter is a good option. They can swap their Thunderhammers for chain fists if you want.
For free.
For free, and combi weapons for 7 points. Cool. And you may take a Land Raider Phobos as a dedicated transport. Cool, whatever. And they can be if they were taken as a bodyguard, they lose their hatred, cybernetic cortex, and Gad Stain, feel no pain 6+, which is okay, cool. That's not bad. I quite like them. They're
Yeah,
a
I
bit
thought
different.
they were cool.
They're not like, don't get me wrong, again, much like the other units in this, they don't set the world alight,
I don't think they should. I don't think
but
that's the
they
point of
don't
this,
have
is it?
to.
No.
And again, if there are rules changes coming, we don't know how they will interact. 2 attacks each. With Thunderhammers as base, obviously there is an issue with combat Terminators. You're probably going to want to put them in the Spartan and whatever. The other option you do have, if they are with Perturabo, he gets to deep strike on a turn he chooses for no scatter.
Well, that's potent.
Yeah,
Blimey. Yeah.
but obviously with Cataphracta you can't run after that, so you are taking that big risk. So you can play it that way if you want. But yeah, being able to challenge out things like that can be useful. with this kind of unit. I quite like
There's
them.
not many Terminator
They're fun.
squads that can take multi-munters.
No, like just
Just
Aaron.
Aaron can, and that's about it.
Can Fire Drakes? I can't remember.
I'm not sure they can.
Can't. No, maybe not. I can't remember for the life of me, to be honest.
No.
But
But
yeah,
it
no,
stands out that I remember it being fairly unique for just Aaron for a long
yeah,
time.
no, it's good,
So
and
it's quite
especially
rare.
like when you got a combat squad like that, giving them the ability to then turn around and shoot a tank, like is never a
Armored
bad
Ceramite or
thing.
not, it's still a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And not every tank's armored ceramite. Plenty
No.
of things like dreadnoughts as well. Like the
Yeah. It
problem with
adds up.
dreadnoughts is they're
Yeah.
going before you, so if you are then threatened by something like that, you do have a chance of taking it out before you get there, or if you're just left stranded because you can't run. So the ability to reach out and do stuff is kind of cool. Where am I? I'm trying to find.
Another excellent pack, I think. I did hear it suggested somewhere that this was the last of the set. That there were going to be 3. I find that hard to believe. I would have thought
So
about 6.
I don't think they've said anything. I think
About a
there was
number.
an
No, I thought
assumption.
that was an assumption. There's only 3.
Yeah, and it kind of fits that there could only be 3, but I think, well, we don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I don't think there's any suggestion that it's going to be shorter. Just saw
No.
it. Someone mentioned it, and I thought, well, where have you got that from? In the opening paragraph of the article, in the next part of our series of exemplary
Yes,
matters.
exactly.
It's not suggesting in our
Well,
concluding.
hopefully,
article.
even with the new kind of setup, they can carry on. Like they don't
why
ever
not?
have to stop doing these. They've done one a month for 3 months or whatever, roughly. But they don't have to keep doing it at that pace. They can just, as we said, like if this comes
One a
before
quarter, lovely.
between bigger releases on any kind of structure, I'd be happy with that. We will have a proper look at. I think I'll try and actually sit down and have a proper look through these at some point. But it's more cool stuff to play with whilst we're waiting for whatever
for
is
what might
coming.
be on the horizon. Yes, or what will be on the horizon. But
Indeed. Should we talk about that? So
well, why not? We just touch on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hit through Fate 212 and taken up by various places. Talk of what is to come next year. The Heater Gladius launch box, which is the box we saw photos of. This is all
cool to hear it phrased as a launch box.
Yeah, this is all rumor.
What we speculated might be the case, and these are rumors allegedly from a
yes. So allegedly,
source, but rumors, of course.
Indeed. So we should take it all with that pinch of salt. But
of course.
Talk of a £240 launch box, which though expensive, what we've got in there: plastic Spartan, Terminators.
Despite the fact we saw the photos, I was still not convinced that was a single box. If this is another rumour suggesting it is a single box, that price point is high. It makes it the most expensive single box set they've ever released, other than army boxes.
I think
they've
pushed. Yeah, Specialist Games have pushed what they've done with these boxes from Titanicus, and then the Necromunda Zone Mortalis box set was expensive as well. So it wouldn't surprise me. What made me laugh is I read Horus Heresy Flyer. I was like, really?
Yeah, I thought that.
A piece of paper
limited
flyer.
Edition? Yeah. The way they phrased it, I just thought, I thought the same. People are going to jump on that. Like, wow, that's the limited edition.
So let's talk about that.
Box.
Plus, normally when these prices are talked about, they're talked about at retail. So you would still get your discount. So you'd be looking at best part of 50 quid off that if you went through. Wow. Sometimes some of the shops now don't do the big discount on those. Some do, some
boxes.
don't. So we'll have to see on that one.
Yeah.
But then talk of other boxes. So like an intro box, which is miniatures characters, but basically without like the campaign booklet and intro booklet and other stuff like that as well.
Following the same principle as Age of Sigmar and 40k, again suggesting then the fact that there are 3 starting points that would follow on from the launch box. The launch box would presumably be limited in the way that Indomitus
limited period, because they would be able to order it, because they seem to be committed to that, which is good.
Oh, that's true. Yes, like they've done with Kill Team recently, and that they did with what's the Age of Sigmar one? Dominion,
Dominion,
where you order it, you're guaranteed a copy to stop people going
even if
insane.
it's 8 months later. Yeah.
And I wouldn't
That's
have,
good.
yes, and the printed material will be stuff that'd be a tricky bit in this. But anyway, so there's that'll come. But then having these three priced entry points, like the other games, the big game systems, is brilliant. We've been asking for it for years, or we've been
Yep.
suggesting it, hoping, and there it is. Fantastic. I think that would be a good position.
Indeed. Talk of new spray cans, some of them fitting colours, so makes a sensible option if things like Sons of Horus, which is notoriously a tricky one um, to kind of work out, let alone get a
Yeah,
uniformed colour of, and things like that. Alpha Legion as well, potentially, which is cool. Some other sources, that's fine. Age of Darkness era. So there was some chat originally about there being like much like Flames of War, like Second World War games having eras in which you play games, and that not really being a thing now. That they're going to do books that represent periods of time, like we were talking about with Adeptus Titanicus. Like a book is set around something specific,
yeah,
which is basically what they've done anyway. That's been a heresy thing anyway.
yeah.
So like that wouldn't surprise me. What else is there? Was there anything else? Or was that basically it? Wasn't it?
Well, that's basically it in that rumor. Yeah,
So,
kicking around there. There was a
oh,
suggestion that it was
the rule
switched
book.
around. Yeah.
Yeah. So the rule book thing. So what it says is main rules for Games Workshop's new main system. Core rules technically 7th edition 40k units and formations like in 8th and 9th. So that people have read that and taken that and run with it and said, oh, it's a Games Workshop are taking it in house and da da da. I don't see that written here anywhere. Um,
Mm.
I also like, don't get me wrong, been wrong before, and been surprised, but yeah, they've got a team that works on it. I don't understand if they've got enough people to expand that team. Like essentially, what is Games Workshop Prime anymore, and what is Specialist Games Design?
I think
There
that's
are
below
teams
it.
that work on
Yeah,
every game, aren't there?
yeah.
And some, so even if it moves from Specialist Games Design in inverted commas to GW Prime in inverted commas, if it's the same team working on it, it's kind of irrelevant. Um, I think it's what we've seen from GW with all their game systems is a desire to move away from resin where they can into plastic production. Hence why they've got so many more machines working up to fire up, get this stuff done. Um, so, like, it's almost irrelevant who's making it in that respect. Pushing on for that, years ago when I tried to explain what happened around Age of Darkness staying in 7th edition when 8th edition came out, and then obviously Alan Bly's passing and stuff like that. Andy Hall pulled me to the side at Heresy Weekender, said, Greg, you got it slightly wrong. This is what happened. We were looking at writing the rules. We didn't have any time to do it. We basically ran out of time. Whether it could happen or not is kind of irrelevant. Time was a major issue, and so the decision was made to keep it with 7th. And what we'll do is we'll look at what 8th and Age of Sigmar does, and and in the future, we'll go from there. And that's the biggest kind of, in the future. Well, anything could happen. They could change the 9th, they could stay 7th. Whatever
Mm.
ideas you have of what's going to happen in the future can change like that, can't they?
Yeah.
But when you look at, so Andy Hall's in charge of Specialist Games and was in charge of Heresy under all that. Adeptus Titanicus is kind of makes no bones about being a slightly older style of game in terms of no pre-measuring and keeping track of like all the stuff. It's not an old. It still has modern game design elements, but it's intricate and you know it
Yeah.
feels.
It's a crunchier game. It's a
Yeah, it has
to
more
want the word.
detail.
It's
Yeah,
more detail, and it's not as. And when you say this, actually, it is quite straightforward. But there's more. It's not as easy to pick up and play and throw down in the way that 40k or
it's a
Age
bit.
of Sigmar is.
Yeah,
You couldn't pick up an
the problem is,
equivalent of 10 guys and
yeah,
just roll some dice. You have got to have a command terminal. You got to have weapons cards. You
yeah,
get all that in the starter set. It's a brilliant game. I'm a huge fan, as you know, as you are.
yeah.
But it's not positioned in the same way, and it's certainly not as it starts getting a little bit more. You
No,
get a bit more into it. But that said, then
Aeronautica
neither is
Imperialis.
40k. Yeah,
Aeronautica Imperialis. You can put some planes down. Like, and once you understand maneuvers, you roll some dice. Like, and don't get me wrong, it's a fun game, but it's X-wing. Adeptus Titanicus isn't. Like,
Yeah.
and I believe that there is GW have also accepted there's room for very different styles of game because it brings in different people. When we look across the range of games they have, from Warcry to Underworlds to Age of Sigmar to 40k to Aeronautica to Adeptus Titanicus, like they appeal to different people, and I think they understand that they have people who only play one of their game systems,
Mm.
and you expand your your range of customer by doing that. So I wouldn't be surprised if all that combination of things means that we do look to keep major elements of Seventh, but look and change and move forwards with elements that are less simple, less straightforward, and more confusing, and don't fit.
Yeah. There's more
Now,
to it.
whatever they
Yeah.
are, like I think I mean, I've been calling for that kind of thing to happen. So there's a little bit of hope in me that that's what happens. I just from the people who work around it, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way they go. Again, I could be completely wrong. Basically, what we've seen in this rumor is a kind of logic, apart from prices, obviously. Like, there's nothing here that stands out as being completely well, that's never going to happen.
No.
Um, Oh no, there is here. There will be some internal changes at Nottingham. Staff from the Forge World team switched already to GW main studio. Um, Work on the new Age of Darkness rulebook began before this, but I thought they were advertising for Specialist Games people under the Horus Heresy thing. So I think
I
they
find,
use
I
the
mean,
title. Either way, it's kind of
it's
irrelevant.
sort of, yeah, exactly. It's somewhat. I take it. It's okay. It's interesting, kind of, but it doesn't have any immediate impact
No,
on what we're
I would
talking
be
about. It's kind of
surprised.
interesting to see, is there?
I would be surprised if the management for that team, though, they still need to have an understanding, like the managers of that team, so not the people actually working on the books, but and it would almost seem weird to move like Andy off that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, I agree. Yes.
but that's partly because, well, if I look at 40k and I think of the people on those teams, it doesn't necessarily scream to me that they know huge amounts about 30k. Now I could be wrong; there could be someone who does that, but when I look around, some of the, they are different beasts.
Mm.
But again, sort of irrelevant. What it does say is White Dwarf team will grow for more Horus Heresy featuring content. I think that could just be like there'll be more Horus Heresy in White Dwarf without it necessarily growing. But again, like if they're going to push the game, they're going to put it in White Dwarf more. That's a logical process.
Yes.
Uh,
I thought it was interesting to see the way they're going to, and it makes sense. But I thought it was interesting to see the rumours of what the books might be. That we'd have a rule book, kind of obvious. That's logical that you'd have an updated rule book, and that there will then be Warzone books, of which the first one was surprising because we were all somewhat expecting from that photo that it was going, and given where we are with the Black Library story, that we might see a jump to the Siege type setting. And actually, there's a suggestion here that Warzone it's in the Sol system, but it's not necessarily the
but
Siege, and the Legion's covered. I was a bit of a surprise.
yeah, part of the thing is, so Adeptus Titanicus is all over the place with when it
Yes.
releases books. Like they're not working on a
No.
methodical time scale.
It's not chronological releases.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's
In
they're
setting
jumping around,
chronologically.
and that's
Yeah.
fine, cool. Like the thing they can do by pushing towards the siege is that they can then go right now. We're going to treat this, we're going to jump around and do what we want, where we want, based on what we need to release, which is possibly a little bit more freeing for them as well, in that they don't have
Yeah.
to work forwards. Because the black books were, I mean, they weren't in chronological order. They were supposed to be, but book 7 was supposed to be book 4. So, just it happens.
Yeah.
But you take away that kind of pressure on you to then have to work a set way. Yeah, I mean, cool. I kind of want to move on from it now, but like prices, yeah, maybe whatever. Might be right. There are certain people who you and I talked before. There are certain rumours that have been kind of shown to be more reliable than others. I'm at the end of the day, we can't do anything about this anyway. It's
No.
going to come out or
I
not.
think it's looking
we roll with it.
looking likely. I think these. There's a level of detail here. It's looking likely. It's
Yeah,
there. It may not be, of course, but it's looking likely and it's believable. it
yeah.
has it has a logic to it.
And
Cool.
the fact we didn't get any pictures of it at the weekend means that I suspect we're not getting it in 3 months' time, so we're looking at February earliest. There was some talk about Easter time. Um,
Yes.
Again, who knows? The only problem is it's like, do you go out and buy new stuff still? um,
Yeah. It's a bigger box than I expected. That's what I even though we've seen the photo, I didn't
yeah,
expect that to be one single box, and it appears to be, according to that rumor, which is a substantial amount of stuff. Would you get the box in its current rumored content?
yeah, probably because the Mark 6 is cool. Always need
Would
more
you add it
Spartans.
to an existing legion, or would you start
Yeah,
a new
it'll be
legion?
Space Wars.
It'd be
Because
Space
I
Force.
need to paint my Space Wars properly at some point. In fact, I saw someone saying there's been a lot of I'm going to get this. Can I use Mark 6 with this? I haven't got around to reading that White Dwarf article yet, but the answer is always
Oh, it's
yes.
good.
Pretty
It's really
much,
good.
or it's pretty much always yes. Iron Warriors, it's a bit of a push, um, that kind of thing, because they kind of Perturabo basically rejected it all. But this person was with someone said with Space Wars, it's like, well, no, there'll be all this, that, and I'm like, okay. He said, so there wouldn't be. It was that kind of you have to justify it because they wouldn't have much. And I'm like, cool. Say, should we say 1% of the army has it? That would work out to depending on when you start with Space Wolves, up to 1,300 Marines is
Yeah.
1% of the Legion um, before Prospero. So take that afterwards when they've been smashed up. Say they've been smashed up by 50%. You've still got 700 Marines. Are you putting 700 Marines on the table in Mark 6? No. Are you putting 40 or 50? Well, it easily fits in that then, doesn't it? And bearing in mind then the Space Wars actually went back to Terra before Terra happened and all that jazz. You know, the numbers we deal with are huge. When you're putting 40, 50, 60 models on the table, you can represent that small part of the Legion very
The
easily.
the the White Dwarf article is excellent, and
Yeah.
it immediately goes straight out and says this every legion basically it describes each mark of armor, and it
Mm.
says it makes a point of almost saying every legion had access to all marks, and just some legions happened to favour certain marks
Yeah, absolutely.
for certain things. Like Imperial Fists were quite well known for what they did, so therefore they tended to favour Mark III when it was around. But it didn't, but it still clearly makes a point of saying that everyone had access to everything.
Yeah.
Great, and you think, okay, fine, good. You can do whatever. I do think visually certain legions suit certain marks, and
Yeah.
Mark 6 suits certain others. But then you can do cool, unexpected things as well.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
that's the thing as well, isn't it? It's like have some Raven Guard with Mark 4.
yeah, yeah,
Mix it up. In fact, what I really kind of like Mark Five's weird because Mark Five isn't a mark of armor. Like,
that it was the White Dwarf article was one of the best extensions of that because it says that there's these kind of two versions of Mark
yeah,
Five, of this being a stopgap thing, and it explores that in more detail.
but
So that yes, there is this sort of not really a mark, but it also sort of is
sort
in
of
a
is, yeah,
couple of others. It's not just a field patch repair. That is
but,
a distinct
yeah.
thing.
But what I was also getting up to is like mix your marks on your dudes.
Yeah,
And then when someone goes, "Oh, you got Mark 3 legs with Mark 6 body," he goes, "Yeah, like late heresy, man. They took
yeah,
what worked."
yeah,
Simple as that. Like, that's your real heresy era mark
yeah,
is where it's just bits and pieces.
yeah.
Um,
Particularly Mark IV and Mark VI mixed
yeah.
together, I think could be quite cool.
So yeah, there's loads of cool stuff going on there. One last thing, Warhammer Plus subscriptions. So you can get 2 weeks free. So if you're one of those people who doesn't think it's worth it, just get 2 weeks free. You can cancel straight away. You still got those 2 weeks, and you can go and watch the couple of shows that you may be interested in, and look at the other stuff and bits and pieces. Um, but they've done their first. What was interesting? So they've released their first kind of deal, which is if you spend this weekend, is it? If you spend, or it's a short period of time, but if you spend, you basically get 10% back depending on how much you
I
spend.
think that's over quite a long period. Same
Yeah,
impression I got.
it's
I
a
think it's
month
like
or
over a
so, isn't it?
month. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you spend £100. £100, you get £10 back. You spend over 150, you get 15. It's done in brackets. They've done this kind of thing before, recently, a couple of times, because I saw some. It doesn't actually bring stuff down to the price of third party
No,
sellers,
because it's
but
10%. Yeah.
it bridges that gap a little bit.
Mm,
So maybe some people will go then for the coin and whatever. So it's a little bit of GW aren't losing out doing it, because someone said, "Oh, does this show that Warhammer Plus isn't doing very well in there trying to get people to sign up?" It's like, well, you don't have to not be doing well to get more people to sign up. Like Netflix is always trying to get more people to sign up. Doesn't mean it's failing. Um,
yes.
Also, they've promised deals to people on Warhammer Plus, so they kind of have to deliver. And yeah, an easy one to do, but it still hits the mark. And if you're going to go and buy, like, there's some limited edition books out the weekend, I think, or there's the
Yes, there
calendar
is.
for
Wolf Time is
certain.
out. Yeah, yeah.
Yep, and then there's direct only models. Like, go and get them with that, right? Because there's always something from GW that you can get that you can't get somewhere else. So it's good for those people as well. Um, and it looks good. Like, we don't moan at GW for doing offers when for donkey's years they never did offers.
Well, there was a big no, and it was for a long time. Then they almost made a particular point of it. I seem to remember it was discussed that they
Yeah.
made specific statements that they never would. Beyond that, they've got this week. I think it is the rest of this week. They've still got some starter sets to
Yes.
get you into games with quite substantial discounts. Discounts that tends to
Yeah.
go beyond. Well, the standout ones for me. I mean, Catacombs is one that Warcry Catacombs
Yeah.
is one I'm trying to resist at the moment. It's one I didn't pick up
What?
previously, and it's currently cheaper than it is even from the most generous third
Yeah.
parties.
Dominion
But
60.
Aeronautica,
Oh
yeah,
no, 87.
Dominion's a good one, but Aeronautic's a crazy good deal.
Yeah,
Aeronautica
absolutely.
is discounted to the point.
38.50.
Yeah, which for what you get in there with the two Marauders, the two
Yeah.
or three Thunderbolts, whatever it is, the Orcs, the rules, the playmat, etc. That is quite. It was supposed to be
Yeah,
55
Beastgrave sold
normally.
out.
Yeah, not surprised. Yeah,
Azurite
great
Scenery
models.
sold out. There's some other bits. This is stock they want to move on. They don't want sitting on the
Of
shelf.
course.
Yeah, that's fine. That's not a problem. It's cool. If you don't want it, you don't want it. That's
Yeah.
fine. It
But
is
it's
what
great
it
that
is.
they're doing that. It's not something they've done before, and I think that's cool.
No, but they
They're doing
have been over the last 3 or so years. They have done the odd deals. They've done the
They have.
spend £100 get a £10 voucher at Forge World and at GW.
I
So
do find the fact that the vouchers are not interchangeable between Forge World and GW quite irritating.
yeah, but that's sensible, isn't it?
I can see why they do it, but
It's
I
very
just think,
sensible.
given that we all now have a combined my Warhammer account and stuff, and you think they
Yeah.
put those things close together, I just feel that the vouchers should be usable on either side.
Yeah, it would be nice, but hey, it's all good. So yeah, keep
It's
an eye
still
on
an offer.
GW.
Yeah, it's still an
Indeed.
offer, which is great.
But yeah, worth signing up for that 2 weeks if you haven't for Warhammer Plus. Um, Value is always subjective because I play 40k and Age of Sigmar. I can use both the apps, so automatically it's pretty much good value. I really like the TV shows they've made. There's not huge amounts of them, but they're still good, so I don't mind paying that. What is it? How much is it? $5.99 a month or
I
something?
think it's $4.99 a month. In
Four
the
ninety
UK.
nine a month.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. For the battle reports are fun. They're not particularly deep, but they're very well done. The lore videos are fantastic,
Yes, they are good.
and
Yeah.
I want more of that. And and I say I've got some TV to catch up on, but it's good. I like it.
I
So
particularly enjoyed the Eldar one the other day.
haven't got around to that yet.
That is very good. That
Yeah,
is
I've heard so many good things.
Yeah, that is very good. Angels of Darkness is good.
Yeah,
Sorry, Angels of Death rather. Angels of Death is excellent.
yeah. I can't wait till they put that new film that they've got that they released at the cinema that they're going to put on it. That is it called June? That's obviously Warhammer.
I genuinely believed you for a second. I genuinely was like, "What the hell? Where's he going with this? What's this?" I was like, "They put Ultra into the movie on there. What?"
Oh, could you imagine? Oh my word! I'll have my subscription back in for that month. No. Plus, I'm getting the model. Crazy value. But yeah, no. Yeah, June. That's a different story. It's a cracking film, though. But yeah, okay, we've talked for an hour, dude.
Already? Oh my goodness.
Let us sign off this part and come back and let's talk about some Primarchs.
Good idea.
Okie dokie. So we're finally here. We have 18 Primarch models, not quite released, but able to judge, I think is the terminology. I was waiting for this before I ever did a rating of Primarchs in any way, shape, or form. I was like, I want all the models. We want to do it all in one go. We have attempted a mammoth task in not very many days.
A mammoth,
We are
and some would say insane
Yeah,
task.
we are going to give definitive answers to what is the best Primarch in terms of model,
Wow.
rules, background, and overall. Absolutely, unequivocally definitive.
It's making me
Don't
feel
at
queasy even hearing
don't
you
at
say
me.
it.
Yeah, we're going to run through all the Primarchs. We're going to judge them on model, rules, and background, and they are our own complete objective reasons for doing the subjective. Sorry, reasons for doing
Objective
so,
stroke.
not
Wow.
objectives. Objectives. This is the best. Tough. Because there is no way of doing it objectively. Even the rules, like which almost feel that you can, like there's so many variables thrown
Yes.
into things. Particularly when I was like, oh, actually that dude's rules are really good. Oh, in this specific, yeah, you'd have to build. Okay, right, yeah. So is it that good? That kind of thing. But we thought it would be fun.
Yeah. And
Why
it
not?
was actually. Even setting up the list was
Well,
surprisingly challenging. Putting yourself through it.
crossed off. I was like, yep, definitely there, definitely there, definitely there. And then about 20 minutes later, look back at it and was like, why is he down there? No way. He should be
We're
at least
clearly going to
5 up.
disagree. We're
I'm
clearly
swapping
going to
that over.
disagree, even as we talk it through.
So
Inevitably.
I just out of interest, I popped on. There's I think Bolt and Chainsaw have got like a just on the models look like best to worst, and I was like someone had their top three, and then someone listed all of theirs, and then the next person had their top three, and like 2 out of those 3 were in the person's bottom 3 above.
Of course.
And I'm like, yeah. And I was at the club last night and I was talking about it, and a mate said, oh, yeah, this model's the best. And I'm like, really? That one? And they're like, yeah, definitely captures everything. And I'm like, no, he's quite far down for me. And I want to say, so, right, when we talk about model, frankly, there's not a Primarch I don't like.
And I discovered that by
Yeah.
also setting. And I
Even
would
the
actually
ones
say
that you think I don't like them,
I
actually,
actually
they're
think that's
really
largely
good.
true under most of these categories, particularly
Exactly.
we're talking model, background, and
Rules. There is
rules.
there are a couple of really good ones and particularly bad ones. I think. Well, one particularly bad one that could easily be adapted. Background. I mean, talk about subjective. Like I've just kind of done the ones I like. Yeah, like I don't know,
Background
hard,
becomes a really
very
interesting
hard.
conversation because is it the one that you like the most, or is it the one that is the most interesting? Is it the one
Yeah,
that's most multi-dimensional, and
and
then it
even
depends on how they've been covered?
but
It's
should they be
fascinating.
multidimensional? Like, is let's say Dawn, for example, is the fact that he's quite um, a um, a stubborn Jobsworth, like the thing that really makes him out to be a bit of a dick. That is him, and he is awesome because of that. So all of that melds into this completely useless rating system that we've got. So basically, we're going to give 1 to 18 for each of them. And then at the end of it all, we're going to add up, and the lowest score in those of total 3 categories will then be the best Primarch in inverted commas.
Nice.
And what could go wrong?
It's literally nothing.
Indeed. So we have 18 Primarchs. We have a lot to talk about. Let us start. We'll start with the model, I think, first. I did yesterday have all 18 like up in different tabs on my on my computer as I was deleting them as I finally worked out a rough placement for them. Let me just put Primarchs into Forge World so I can skip between them as I go. Should we start at the bottom?
Okay. Now
Right.
the thing is, we're going to have differing opinions on this.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So
You can be
how
wrong. It's
should
fine.
we run through it? Should we run through our respective lists, or should
No, I
we?
think we should. I think we should go through from the bottom up, and then we can review back like 1 to 18 quite quickly.
Okay.
So what did you put as 18?
Mortarion.
Ooh, let me just write that down. I've got a little sheet next to me, so I'm keeping track. Mortarion 18. I think I might tell you where I put Mortarion. I put him 17th, so I'm going to write that
Oh,
in now.
interesting. Interesting.
I think there's an element of so. Again, I don't think the model's bad in any way, shape, or form.
None of
I
them are
think he
bad.
stands out. I
It's
think he
just within
stands out
themselves.
from
Yeah.
as all the Primarchs as being quite different. Him and Angron actually, and I wonder if part of that is because they were so early.
Yes.
Like Angron was the first. Like, and did Sam do? I think Sam might have done Mortarion. Sam did Angron, I'm sure.
Yes, he
Um,
definitely did Angron. Yes.
yeah, he did. Um, Mortarion, this might be a common thing. Like, yeah, cool. It doesn't. He's the one model that doesn't feel quite as much of a Primarch as the other. Something feels
That is a really good point, and one I hadn't quite tweeted. But
like
what does it for me is it's the nature of the weapon.
sure, yeah,
It just feels awkward.
okay, yeah. There's an element of that, but he's got to have that anyway. Like the others all look like brothers to a greater or a lesser extent. Maybe Magnus not so much, and
Mm.
whatever. But he stands out. I feel.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I
There's definitely
mm,
elements I like. I
yeah,
like the
yeah.
sort of cowled head. I like, but there's other elements that stand out that there are elements I don't like, and there were more of those on him than
Mm,
any other.
yeah,
That said,
sure.
I changed his position about if I think while we were speaking.
I think I did him a couple of times. I think I had
Yeah,
him a few further up, and then as I looked at others, I was like, actually, yeah, I think these are all better than Mortarion.
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, I'm
There's
with you
another
on that
model
one.
that which we'll come to that
So my
was solidly in my last place.
cool, my 18th is Fulgrim,
Okay. Yeah.
and I tell you for why. It's the pose. I think he looks better when he's next to Ferrus.
Yes.
And I think when he's not, he's only got his own dead dudes on his base.
Mm.
So the pose is looks awkward because it hasn't got the it's not hasn't got the
Hasn't got the
context
companion
around it.
piece. Yeah. Yeah.
And then his face, like although it's good and I understand it, you can't help but look at it a little bit and think, yes, those jokes that are on the internet, there's a reason they keep coming round. Um, Not that it's bad, it's just it draws me out of looking at the model.
Yeah, I can see that. What was also interesting is that there was an alternative at one of the
Yes.
weekenders, which was quite cool, and I haven't
Well,
seen that with any of the others. And you're like,
and this
oh,
is this is where we talked about having alternatives.
well, indeed,
Um,
indeed.
like the Fulgrim did have a slight alternative. Like Sam wanted to do a slightly different pose for Dawn. He wanted to try and make the model do two poses, but obviously they couldn't. It didn't happen that way. So yeah, who knows? But yeah, Fulgrim for me just feels just feels like it needs to be in context and it doesn't have the context on the base for the pose it's got.
I also think Fulgrim, to some degree, suffers for being one of the earlier ones,
Early
as you said.
ones, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I definitely think Sam's improved, and
Yes.
and it's like Dan Abnett, right? Lots of people love early Gaunt's Ghosts, but when you read late Dan and early Dan, you do notice, Eisenhorn even
Well,
more actually.
they would say the same. They'd be the first people to say that. They'd be the first people to say that.
Yeah,
Surprisingly, after 10 years, they've improved.
exactly. And they
It would be
started
a
off well,
strange person
but
not
they
to.
actually improved.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've gone with Fulgrim as my 18. So I've got Mortarion as 17. Who is your 17?
He was 18 up until about 5 minutes before we started speaking.
Right.
Perturabo.
Ooh, wow,
Yeah,
big
and bearing in mind,
call.
I'm an Iron Warriors collector.
Right,
Yeah,
tell me why.
I'm not a fan of. Well, first of all, I think I find the base problematic,
Sure,
and I know
it's a
it's not
it's
a
a big
fundamental part
base.
of it. I find it the most difficult to
Right.
reconcile with the
Okay.
rest of them. I find it almost overshadows, it almost diminishes, it does almost the
Sure.
opposite of what I
Yeah.
think it's trying to do. To try and show a Primarch has brought down a knight in this case, you think, oh, that's awesome, and somehow it doesn't quite work for me.
Okay.
I seem to remember it doesn't have unlike the others, it doesn't have the ability to be removed so easily as a gaming base, whereas others do. Um, I also find I'm a big fan of the armor. I'm not a
Right.
fan of the head. I know
Okay.
it's lore accurate and it's
Right.
accurate to the imagery we see, but there's just something about it doesn't
Doesn't sit.
chime in the same
Sure.
way as the others. The armor, great, but I just find it overly heavy as a model,
Okay.
which you could say that's accurate. But I find the face is not as charismatic as it should be, and I find the base problematic.
Yeah, I'm not sure charismatic and perturabo go together that well.
Okay,
But I understand the base thing for sure. I am Kel surprise that he's down there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it's safe to say he's not in my list. I won't tell you where he is. And we'll get onto that when we get to him
yeah.
in my list, I think. So I've written
Yours, where are
Perturabo
you
at
at
17.
17? Where are you?
So
Who's your 17?
my 17 was Mortarion,
Oh, of course, yeah,
which
right,
is why I
okay, yeah.
jumped it. So we'll jump straight to your 16 then.
Well, conveniently, Fulgrim.
Oh, okay.
Because I agree with you, sort of down there, it's suffering a little bit from the earlier models.
Yeah,
I find it's not the flamboyancy is quite appropriate, but I just feel others are more successful. I don't know
yeah.
if it is something about the hair. I just feel there's artwork that captures Fulgrim more
I
successfully.
think sure. I think, and we'll see maybe some similar comments with
Mm.
Corax later on, but
Yes,
he's
yes,
very dynamic with the hair and with the movement. Um,
yes,
whereas some of the other Primarchs who are moving don't have quite as much. Like they're more centered in pose,
yes,
like say Russ or who else is moving? Angron. Like there's less about them, and I think it's harder to achieve that. So I think like the scale of difficulty is a level higher because of that pose.
yes. And I
Um,
feel that some of the embellishments. I mean, you look at the movement that they've achieved with the Khan with his
yeah,
cloak, and you look at the cloak. I'd say this is both true of Angron and Fulgrim, but particularly Fulgrim, and those they're not purity seals, but the sort of
yeah.
ribbons that
At
come
the
off of
moment,
him and things.
whatever.
Intrusions. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not. I just don't feel they're as successful
sure.
as they could otherwise be.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. My 16 is Angron.
Interesting. Okay.
And I know some people really love him, but I think this is the big. He was the first,
Yep.
and lessons were learned after doing this. Um, he, I don't know if it's him. I don't know if the paint job is quite how I would have done him either. Um, I think he's a little bit too crouched.
He doesn't feel as to have as much presence as the others,
No, no,
and I
not
think
at
that's
all.
an issue. And I don't know
He
if that's a
seems
physical
smaller.
size thing.
He
Yes, yeah, he
seems
does.
smaller, whether he is or he isn't, because he's moving. I think a part of that is because he's moving forward so fast with
Yes.
that leg really bent up. But I think if you'd redone him and had him slightly taller in that pose, or maybe in blade stroke a little bit more,
Mm.
then it could have worked. Like I like the base around him. I think it works really well.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I
Um,
think the positioning, the dynamism of the models he's ripping through, I think is fantastic.
and
I'm
it's
not a fan of the cloak. I think the cloak is
right,
too heavy
sure.
as a piece of model.
I don't. Yeah, I don't really. Yeah, I'm trying to think of when I picture Angron as Angron and what I picture him like. And it's weird, and this is like where I want to make sure people know. I still think he's a great model, um, but I do think if he'd maybe he'd been done now, he would look quite different.
Angron is a little higher, emphasis on a little, in my list,
Sure.
purely because I think he captures some of the imagery that I was
Yep.
thinking of and the artwork that you otherwise see more
Sure.
successfully than the other ones that we'll cover.
No worries. Cool. Okay, we'll get onto that when we get to him then. So my 15 is, let me have a little look here, Guilliman.
Wow, really? Okay.
So this is one of the ones where he started higher and dropped down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He's fine. I think that's the problem. He's like cool. He's got a fairly static pose, which is hard to get right. But then his sword arm in the air, a little bit like second edition kind of models.
And yet,
Base.
I think that's kind of what makes it kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. And like
Yeah.
the base is cool and it fits and it works well. Like it looks all right, but it's kind of like the artwork, which is really well done, but I just bypass. Like, go cool, that's well painted,
Okay.
right?
It doesn't speak to you.
I think doesn't reach out to me. I'm trying to remember what I put above him, and I could easily have swapped him with the next one above. To be fair, in fact, I probably. In fact, no, I'm going to. Screw it.
It's happening.
No,
it's happening.
changed. It's changed. My 15 is now Lorgar.
Okay.
Similar thing. He's just like with everything that all the others have. I think you just slide past him if he's in a lineup. Like, he doesn't look bad.
I disagree. I'll come to my reasons later.
Cool. I mean, he's cool. He's standing there. He's just cool and standing there. I think maybe there's like, oh yeah, I don't know. I just like there's Dawn is just cool and standing there, but at least Dawn has a presence in that pose, which I like. Lorgar maybe does a little bit more than Guilliman, but it's just a bit. Yeah, looks nice, cool.
I think Guilliman captures the statesman and that thing very, very well, and I think it does that. And I think as a complete mirror reaction to Perturabo, I think the base is brilliant, and I think the pose is very good for that effect. I think the two work together very effectively to really demonstrate what that sort of triumphal thing. Lorgar, different direction. I think it was very brave to do what they did with Lorgar, and I think again the idea of him being as shown in that sort of almost contemplative pose, I think is very cool, and I think there's a moodiness to it, particularly when you see it painted really well with like some source lighting and stuff. I think that's quite cool. Actually,
Lorgar was one of the hardest I had to place, to be fair, because I think there might be times where I look at him and see more of that.
Yeah. I think it's quite subtle. Like, I think the armor's very cool, and I think there's a sort of badass pose to it, which is surprising given what he is. And I just think as a counterpart to Guilliman, even, is a really good piece.
Yeah, and I think there might be just a little bit of like my top 5 or 6 were like there in my top 5 or 6, and that was easy. Where they were in that 5 or 6 was hard. And then it was like, okay, I've got all these in the middle. Yeah, I don't. Lorgar's a really tricky one. I reckon if I did it again in 2 weeks' time, Lorgar might go higher. But he's sitting there for
Lorgar and Guilliman are way higher.
No, I'm swapping them back. Guilliman's 15, Lorgar's 14. I was right the first time. It's all good.
My 15.
Yeah.
Corax.
Ooh, 15. Yeah, I can understand that, and I'm sure a few people will put him down there. Give me your reasons why.
Bit over the top.
Sure.
I just find, for what he is, I find him a little awkward. I quite like where they were going with it. I feel there could be either a viciousness that isn't captured. I mean, the use of the pistol I find a bit strange. I would have thought you go in and have him actually absolutely tearing someone to pieces would have been quite cool. Perhaps then too close to Angron or whatever. I find the choice of these sort of really quite gigantic wings, okay, and then the armor not being particularly refined to go alongside it. I don't know. There was just something that sat awkwardly to me for someone who could have captured something else. I thought there was a lack of the savagery that you could have had,
Right.
and a slight awkwardness in the pose. Tricky, because I sort of applaud the ambition of it, but
Yeah.
it just didn't sit with me particularly well. And this one and the one above it, my 14, is Angron, and they flip-flopped quite a bit.
Sure. Cool. Yeah, I'll come back to Corex, I think, when I get to him. Yeah, Angron. Yeah, well, I think we talked about
We
him
have,
enough.
yeah.
So I'll go with my 13. We talk about, yeah, there's a definite aesthetic for me, which I think is harder to get right, because 13 is Dawn.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
And I think part of
I'm
it's the
sensing a
face.
theme with your grouping here. All the more static guys.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and it's weird because I like Dawn. I like the fact he's like that. I don't know if it's the face. Um, it's cool. I like Dawn. I like the armor. I like the fact he's stoic in that. I think it might just be, to be fair, with Dawn, because the cloak's really good. The cloak is really good. Maybe I got him a couple out.
I'm not sure about the paint choice that they have on the Forge World website of
Right,
non-metallic metals. I think, particularly for Dawn, I almost feel true metallic metals would have shown
sure.
that model off better.
I at
I've put him way higher. I think they
cool.
absolutely nailed it with him.
I think they've got it right. I think the pose. I think there's an element of he's a victim of what he has to be. I actually
Yes.
I think I prefer the model not straight on,
Mm.
which is also an actual something I've only just kind of realised because the cloak is beautiful on
I'm not a
Dawn.
massive fan of his chainsword.
No,
There's something about
I
that.
think
People have
I
commented
think
on this before. There's something about that, but again, that might be the paint job.
yeah. I also think there's like, although he's standing there like I'm here, I'm rock solid. It could have been I'm here, you're not passing,
Mm.
and it's not quite that.
Mm.
And I'm not too sure what subtle differences would be needed. I certainly couldn't do it myself. But yeah, Dawn is my
Well,
13.
there's a version here again. He's considering here. He's
Yeah,
sort of almost planning. I used the term contemplative earlier. The
yeah,
version you're talking about is almost closer to the cover of Praetorian of Dawn, where
yeah.
perhaps he's saying, "I am going to mess you up."
I am the wall.
Yeah,
Well, just yeah,
exactly.
I am the
Where
wall.
he's in
I'm
a
not
guard.
moving.
He could be in a guard stance with his blade, rather than I've
Yeah.
finished here. I'm now looking out to the next thing.
I tell you what, going through them, talking about them, shows just how hard this is. Because frankly,
It's virtually
like,
impossible.
yeah, like 7 to 14 almost could be in a different order every time.
I'd go further. It's almost my 5 to 14
I've
lowest
got groups.
region.
I've
Yeah,
I've got definite groups
yeah.
where I'm like, okay, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Let's try and work out what order they're going. That one, that one, that one, that one, that one. And there are a few that jumped groups, but not many.
Mm.
Cool. So that's my 13. What's yours? 13.
Kurz.
Okie dokie.
I just find him. I found him. I'm sort of speaking here as if that's not a particularly high rating. Again, I wasn't really sure here. It's partly because the Night Lords don't particularly speak to me. There
Yeah,
are elements of that model I think are cool, but I find them a bit too. And this is going to sound weird, but given what they're about, cartoony.
sure.
I find them a bit too
Yeah.
of the comedy villain almost. There, I do think the armor's very cool, but I just find the sort of grisly trophies a tricky thing to work with, and something about it. I don't know. So it's something similar to Mortarion in it. It's just not quite working for me.
Kurz was my 12, but he
Okay.
started off a lot lower.
Mm.
I partly think there's an element of Neil Hollis painted him really well. I
Right.
really like Neil's version. I think there's
Mm.
an element of that with one or two models here that I've seen people's versions of that I really like. He fits the Nighthawk and the pose.
Mm.
He's there with blades out, ready. There's menace in the figure, but again, I understand your sentiment, and I think that's why he was lower for me at first time. And he's one of the ones who jumped brackets and
Yes.
could easily jump back down. Like he
I
could
think
be
the
like 15th, 16th for me.
I think the challenge with him is it's very difficult to reconcile the armor that they all have to wear. I mean,
Yeah,
particularly when you look at the lower legs, the greaves and things, and something that is supposed to be quite as fast moving
Yeah,
from the shadows as he is, I think that's a very very difficult design task.
and
I think the
pose as
posing is
well.
good, but yeah,
Yeah, but like you could do him on a pose where he's like haunched down with one arm, like one
mm,
hand holding onto the floor, like in front of him, like that kind of thing. But then, like, are you going too much into a slightly different? Like, are you echoing other IPs and things like that and confusing things?
mm.
Um, yeah, he can move around a lot for me, and I think he would actually. I think next time I do this, he would drop down. Everyone would move up one from about like 16 or something like that. But there are
Again,
times when I
it's
look at him and think he's really cool though. Like, he's
yeah,
grim.
there are parts of it like that, and I think if it's an aesthetic that speaks to you, then he would instantly be a lot higher, and
And the
I
little
would
things
appreciate
like
that.
the playing cards on his, like, I just remember talking to Neil when he was like, "Oh, what should I do with these playing cards?" And I'm like, "Well, you got to paint them like they're painted on the model, haven't you? With like the actual tarot." And he's like, "No, no, they're not done like that." And I'm like, "Dude, zoom in. They are. I've just looked." And he's like, "Oh no." And that, like, when before I was talking to Neil about painting this model, I was like, "Oh, it's cool, it's well painted." Then I was like, "Oh my word, this model is amazing."
Yeah,
um,
yeah, and
but
I think
yeah,
there's quite a
cool.
bit like that which you don't realise until you've
Yeah,
attempted to paint it yourself. Even
go for it. Number 12.
you're not going to like this. Is Ferris.
You are a heathen.
I knew you wouldn't be a fan. I find him a bit boring.
Cool.
I agree with you over his. He works extremely well with Fulgrim, and I've got a horrible feeling it's part of the background sort of blending in. I've never been a huge
Yes,
fan of
the
of
Iron Hands.
no, I quite like the Iron Hands. I'm just not a huge fan of the bare arms, even though that's a
Right. Okay.
fundamental part of who he is about and what he's about,
I
etc.
quite
But
like.
I find that a bit strange, and I find the way the armor. I find the balance in the armor. There's
Sure.
details on it. I'm a big fan of. I like the sort of studded armor, the cog um, finish on the armor, and I think the pose is cool with his swing. The
Hmm.
swing of the hammer is cool, but it almost feels unbalanced. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to find him like falling over.
So he is. I must admit, there is one thing when you look at the photos head on, he is hitting upwards slightly. He is on an
Yes.
angle, which I do think the photos don't help with that.
No. No.
I think when you look at him from slightly above, it works a lot better. Like the main photo is slightly above.
The
Um,
photo of the first unpainted photo of him on the Forge World website does it huge favors because you've got
yeah, it's
it looks
phenomenal.
brilliant. Then it looks really good. I think therefore that says a lot about the profile or the silhouette
Yeah,
from the other side, from the other angles. There's one in particular who is sort of slightly below where he looks hugely unbalanced.
yeah, I can appreciate that.
So there's bits and pieces like that that puts him a bit lower down for me.
We are going to talk about him a fair bit later. Do you want to
Who's
go?
your 12?
My 12 was Kurz. So
Okay.
I will jump on to 11 because we've done Kurz to death. Where's 11? Korax.
Okay.
So, much like you, I think there are things that um, just don't quite hit with the model. However, the movement I love. I love the fact the ground's impacting. I love the fact the hair's going the right way for the movement, and it's swooping in, and his legs are bending into the impact, and the arms are out to balance him. And I actually quite like the fact the pistol is forwards because he's not Angron, and you know he's not this
No, I can take that.
force of
Yeah,
nature.
completely.
He's a bit more clever, a bit more subtle than that. But there are aspects of it, like the base is then very high.
Mm,
If that was like if they took out the bottom third, I think it could look better, maybe quarter. The face and the hair, unfortunately, it's really well done, but sometimes when you look at it, it just jars.
mm.
But it's one of those ones where you have to go, oh no, that's right, isn't it? That would be like that. Um, we talked about it quite often. Sometimes in modeling things, you have to go against what's natural to make them look right for the model, and there's a hard balance to get right. Um,
The more you talk about it, the more I'm quite appreciating the model. I still have a bit of a problem with the pistol looking a bit too much like a 50s
sure.
ray gun.
That's fine. That's cool. Yeah, I think I think it's one of the bravest models
Yes.
because of the pose. Like
Yes.
that's a really hard thing to get right, and I think elements of it are amazing,
Mm.
and elements of it are cool. Um, and the face again, a little bit like again like impact, moving through the air, all that stuff. But sometimes when you look at a model, you don't see all that. You just see aspects of it, and it doesn't
Mm.
necessarily work as well. But yeah, I just think because this was Sam again, I think.
I do
Uh,
think the dynamic base is cool. I hadn't
yeah, like
quite
smashing
appreciated that.
into
That
that,
is quite cool.
and his knees bending to accept it, like his right
Yeah.
knee bending, taking like I remember looking at it the first time and not really seeing it, and then appreciating it, and
Mm.
then as you look at the rest of the model, then you're like, oh yeah, it all makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I
Um,
can see that.
so
Yeah.
that's why he's up there at 11
Mm.
for me. Anyway, you're 11.
Russ.
Oof,
I know.
Russ.
I know.
Yeah, that's fair enough. What is
He
it
was
about Russ
tricky.
you
He was
hate?
tricky. I was. Why do you despise the finest one? He was. There's a slight.
I kept coming. He was one where I kept going. Oh, he's there. Oh, is he there, or is he up there, or is he down there, or is he there?
He's one of the harder ones I find
I
because
think the angle of the
there
photo
are
changes
angles.
it.
I agree. There are angles, and the main photo they use, I think, is terrible. I think
Yeah,
they've taken that really badly. I think they make it look like he's all um, like
off
power
kilter.
boots. He's all feet. He's all
Yeah,
feet and shins. He's all shin pads. You're like, all right, calm down. Then there's other parts of it, like particularly the swing of the axe. When you
yeah,
see that they're slightly pitched forward, you're like, oh, okay. There's a savagery here.
yeah.
I find him almost a little overly ornate for what
Right.
my image of Russ is. I feel
Really?
there's a sort of a version that I almost feel like I could deal with I mean, I'm just looking at it now. In a minute, again, there might be the paint job, perhaps, but there's quite a lot going on
It's
with
an
all the
interesting colour.
rune marks on there. Yeah,
Don't think the
um,
colour's quite right on the photo.
I think the head and
No.
the expression and the hair and stuff is very very good. And I think the choice of the sort of stripped back, fairly basic base as a method of then mixing it in with
Yeah.
Magnus is cool. And I think the choice to make them obvious, it was sort of an obvious choice, but a brilliantly executed one to have them in that duel, much like Ferrus and Fulgrim. But somehow he doesn't seem to
Sure.
capture quite the ferocity. And again, it's the photo. As soon as the photo's
Yep.
slightly down,
Yeah, it doesn't help.
slightly, as soon as the photo is slightly below and looking up, ruins it. As soon as the photo is above and looking down, I'm like, oh, actually, I
Sure.
need to reconsider this, and you jump up like 3 places for me.
Now, we'll talk
So
about it later.
it
I
varies.
love the fact they managed to have him stalking. Like
Mm.
the one thing they've done really well, like Angron is charging forwards through everything, killing whatever's in his way. Russ isn't doing that. Russ is stalking as he's doing that, and there's others as you go through where they've managed to capture slightly different poses in
Yeah.
a clever way.
I'm looking at the 360 now, and I think I've got this wrong.
Yeah, so do I. But
Like,
there we go. Unless you want to quickly change it. What's your 10?
this slightly hurt me to put this one here, but Vulcan.
Hey, same here.
Oh, we crossed over.
Snapsies. It's a fantastic model, but again, I feel like cool. Like it's a picture on a wall kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot of cool detail in it. I just don't like. I just can't. There's nothing to put it up or below or where it is, kind of is
That's
for
why it's a
me.
solid mid-table.
Solid, yeah, solid, like cracking model, but nothing stands out about him either way. Like he's very detailed. That's cool. All that. Like yeah, it's just a great model, but
I think
without
it
anything.
exemplifies Vulcan very well.
Yeah.
I think it sort of shows that sort of. I think I've used that phrase before, but that sort of stoicism to him. Not a massive fan of the big Drake skull on the right shoulder
Sure.
pad. I find that a bit over the top, given what it is. But
The
I think
cloak's quite nice.
the cloak is incredible,
Yeah.
particularly when you see it in the resin. I think the paint job doesn't even come close to doing that justice. I think that's
I think maybe it's
fantastic piece of
hard,
work.
like the colours as well. Like again, part of this is down to like we're looking at paint jobs a lot of the time.
Yeah.
the dark skin, the green, the oranges. Like, I think that might affect me a little bit on that. He's just a cool model, but doesn't for the ones above me. There's something more there.
I agree with that.
I think that is it. So that's nice and easy. That's 10's done. Boom. 9. Sanguinius.
I just need to have a little moment of quiet. Sorry.
Suitable number.
It's the only thing I can say about that choice of putting him there.
So
Although, to be honest,
model.
I'm not massively surprised. But yes, okay.
Lack of base was a little considerate. I was like, there's something missing.
See,
yeah,
I
he's got
hadn't
his little
seen that,
base.
and that's a very, very good point.
Which does affect the model for me. If I was to go and buy him, that's what I'm buying. I'm not getting that extra bit of base. The wings are lovely. The cloak is lovely. The downward pose is lovely. The weapon, I understand it. I understand where it's coming from. The left arm, I understand where it's coming from. Hair is always hard, as we said, with these people who are floating around. Like, I understand the references, St. Michael and the Angel and all that. But it doesn't quite grab me like some of the others moving forwards. And it's just those.
I'll return
bits.
to him because
Cool.
we'll come up with him at another point.
No worries. What's your 9?
My number 9 is Alfarius.
Ooh, Alfarius.
I like that model.
We should have been saying who's sculpted all these as we went, didn't we? This was Rob McFarlane. I know that one.
Do they put these? You have to know it because they don't.
You have to
on the
know
website,
it.
do they?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember because Perturabo was what's his name? Guy who left. Edgar.
Oh no.
No.
Gonzalez, wasn't it? Oh dear, I had
sure?
the name in my head. No,
was it not Edgar?
No, I don't think it was. No.
Okay, yeah, I can't remember for the life of me. I should have
had
done my
name
research.
Earlier. I had the name earlier. Yes, that was poor. I should have. Israel.
Was it Israel?
I think it was Israel.
Are you sure?
I'm not sure.
I didn't think it was.
Was it not? Okay,
I thought they were aiming
left.
him up. I thought it was Edgar who then went and did his own company. In fact, let me go and have a look on Edgar's. If I can't spell his surname.
I think it is Edgar then, because it was definitely someone who left.
Edgar. Oh, what is his name? Anyway, carry on. Alfarius.
Now I'm looking at the 360. I'm now wondering if he should be up a point or two. But I like Alfarius. I like the detail in the armour. I think the cloak is well executed here. I have a bit of an issue, continue to have an issue with Alfarius having quite such the ornate aspect to him, and I know that's explained elsewhere. So, and I think the cruelness of the pose is very cool, particularly with his scenic base. But it's only mid-table for me, upper mid-table, but it's just mid-table for me.
Okay, I'll talk about him later. I appreciate the armor thing. So Edgar did do Perturabo. He also did Lorgar.
Interesting. Okay.
Because his crop.com/edskomo EDSKOMO /. He's got a list of what he's done. He did a few Space Marines for Forge World. He did Mortarion. Did he? I didn't realise that. Oh, there we go. So he did those 3. He did Eidolon as well.
Eidolon's fantastic.
Yeah. So it was Edgar. Fantastic painter, modeler. Yeah, Alfarius. Yeah, I appreciate that. I will talk about him later.
My next 2 we could probably get through sharpish.
Hold on, where are we?
Hold
on, I've got my 8 and 7. 8
Your
and 7.
9 you've done. Yeah.
What's 8?
My 8, and I'm going to jump in straight to 7 as well. My 8 and 7 is Lorgar and Gilliman. 8 is Lorgar, Gilliman, 7.
Blimey. Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Because I just think that stoic.
I think I've got Lorgar wrong.
I think Lorgar is. I'm the same. I'm thinking the same a bit with Russ. The more I look at that, even Alfarius. I think Alfarius I should put higher. I think I should have put Alfarius at 7. Push Gilliman and Lorgar down. But anyway,
it's too late.
They're up in this upper mid-table bracket. Is these guys? I think Lorgar in particular A lot of people were like, "Oh, he's not dynamic enough." I completely disagree. I think
I,
it's all the
I
stronger
think
for
it's the
being that.
legs. I think it's the legs. I think when you look at the main picture, it's the legs. Don't know
I
why.
could
Maybe
see
the
people.
stance is too wide.
I could see
Maybe
people
it's
having
that.
a problem with the. I mean, I'm just looking at the paint job here, but having a problem with the face where
Yeah,
he looks old
quite. He
compared to
does
the
look
others.
old. I quite like the face though. It's characterful. Um, but yeah, I think I've got Lorgar wrong. But that's cool. Lorgar and Gilliman. And yeah, we talked about why on those fronts.
Yeah.
Where am I? 8. Okay, this will surprise people, I think. Horus.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Fantastic model. It's got that little bit of a leaning forwards, like, stretching pose. The face is great. I'll give him that. Like, the model's great. Um, I think it's partly the weapons pointing out to the side when he's looking forwards. I think
Yeah.
that's an element of that. Maybe I just like more dynamicism in models. Maybe that's what I'm finding out here. Um, I think
I
he's
actually
great.
quite like the fact he's not looking at the weapon because somehow that would make it too close to the. If he was looking at the weapon, or rather in the direction the weapon was pointing, it would be too much of the Gilliman style, almost the more hopeful. I think
Yeah,
there's a certain
don't
sinister.
necessarily think the weapon has to be like that for it to work, though.
No, but I think there's a certain sinisterness to the fact
Yeah,
he's turned away and he's looking almost directly at you
yeah.
rather than at the future,
I like the
if you like.
base. I must admit, I like the base. The base of
That
the
was
head, like
very
the
clever.
like the model is done very well. I'm
Mm,
looking at I'm looking at my number 7, thinking similar things actually. That it's just done very well. And let me just have a little look through as I go through. I'm like the ones that I like just have something that speaks out to me above this. Like
mm,
there's nothing I can say bad about Horace. He's just not higher.
mm.
That's kind of it. And he's been out a long time.
He has indeed, but I think
A
he stands
long
up very well
time.
for that,
He yeah,
as
he
you'll
does.
see from where I've placed him. Who's your 7?
Indeed. My number 7 is the Lion.
Wow, as low as that. Wow.
Yeah, and again, I was a little bit surprised at this because I remember him coming out thinking he is fantastic, and he's standing there like I will chop your head off. And he's big and bulky, and he looks great. He does look great. Um, I don't necessarily think he carries like. Oh, to be honest, I've done the helmeted version. I think maybe even the helmetless version looks like he's got more intent.
I feel this is the pose that Dawn could have
Could
had.
yeah,
This
yeah,
is the one I was talking about where he could have been on guard kind of thing.
yeah.
I think the lion is one of the stronger ones because I think he captures what the lion is about very well, and I think it speaks a lot to the time of when it came out. I think it's showing that
I
the
do definitely. It
capabilities have
looks
moved on.
newer. Yeah,
Yes.
there is no doubt about that. I think I took that into account though a little bit. I think with his helmet, like without his helmet, it adds a lot more to the model. And I think I judged him with his helmet.
I don't know. I think
I
the
understand
helmet
there's that
adds a
quiet,
lot to it.
like
The
I
night.
am.
Well, I think there's the knightly
Yeah,
element to it, which is
I think
quite nice.
more than that, it's the uncaring nature. But when his face
Mm.
is there and he's like, I am gonna like, because like the lion is like, no, I will exterminate you with extreme prejudice. Thank you very much. He's very cool. He is very cool.
This is tough, isn't it?
He is tough. It's tough. Maybe I put Russ too high. Maybe I don't know. Who knows? But I know I'm sticking with the lion. Number 7, fantastic model. And yeah, certainly, um, definitely, you can see he's a modern model
Mm.
compared to the others. Go for it. You're 7. You've done
Well, my 7 is Gilliman. Yeah,
6. You're 6.
Magnus.
Oof. Yeah.
That was tricky. He at 6 and 5, I could probably be interchangeable, but I thought a brilliant model. It's so fantastical because Magnus is.
Mm,
That's the only reason he's not higher in
sure.
terms of just the level of armor, the sort of extreme elements of the horns in particular
Yeah.
going up. I actually really like what they've done. I think the psychic. I mean, that's so hard to do.
Oh, the
Psychic. I
paint
think
job
doing
is
that by
phenomenal.
it really is doing the work with the having the levitating rock and fire,
Yeah.
I think is brilliant. Oh dear, yeah.
So
I'm now wondering if he's in the wrong place. I wonder if he should
so
be
I
5.
think
But anyway,
part of my
superb.
reason. So I've got him a little bit higher. And I think part of that is because he is so different. He's a fantastic model, period. And then he's different. And then the psychic threat that he's got, but also the power of him as well, because he is huge. And like putting the horns the way they did rather than on his chest or anything like that, like using those elements without, keeping them in there without making it look
There's
stupid.
also a foreshadowing
Face,
of the design elements of like
yeah,
Harriman later on as well. Yeah, okay.
absolutely. And then the display base with that magic coming up around. Mine is slightly higher,
I think I could
but
have put him at 5 comfortably.
so my 6 is
Bloody list.
Jagatai.
Wow. I'm surprised he's
Like,
that low. Wow.
and I think it's those little things I said right at the start earlier in the show. So like, just that bottom half of the legs for me, I maybe would like different. Like the detail is phenomenal. Obviously, we can't look at this model as close as the others,
No.
which may hurt it. I think the cloak looks lovely. The way it curls around the face is great. Um, I think maybe if he had a jet bike version, he might be like right up the top. Um,
I'm not sure. I think that might have detracted, actually. I think
it depends how they do
it
it.
makes him comparable to the others, if nothing else, in his
It
current form.
it
I
just
do find
depends how they do it.
there's one part that I struggle with, which is
What's that?
the plate just below his belt buckle,
Right, yeah,
the
the
sort of
groin
shield
plate.
piece, the groin plate, is really weirdly plain.
It also, I think the photo doesn't help it. It looks a little bit like
Yeah.
square onto the camera, but yeah, it is weirdly plain, isn't it? But then if you put anything on it, ah, yeah, I wonder if they've, that's just an echo of something that's around.
Yeah, maybe.
You've got to be careful what you put on there
Clearly.
because of the nature of where it
But
is.
I
I
think
love, I
but you
love
could
the
have put some
hand.
of the filigree on it that
Yeah,
he's got on like
true.
on the shin pad and stuff. But
I
yeah,
love
anyway.
the hand holding the scabbard.
Yeah, that is cool.
It
It
is
also
really good.
suggests it's got this suggestion that he's just drawn the blade, and it's
It's
cool.
super good. It was above the next one for me, which is Russ for a while.
Okay.
It was a real challenge on those. I say Russ, the kind of threat that Russ has got as a model. There are aspects of it which, again, I understand why people don't rate it highly. But then, actually, recently I've seen people talking about Jagatai going, yeah, he's up there just below Russ as my favourite, and I can also see that.
Yeah.
Russ is taking no prisoners. The hair on Russ is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, Jagatai and Russ together, as they possibly might be for a few of these things, actually.
My
Cool.
5 is Horus.
Horus, yeah.
He was up there purely because, well, not the least of which because I think he captures what Horus needs to be, particularly in his current version. Yeah, very well.
Yeah.
I think it captures that extremely well. I think the play of the setting of the base, the positioning, a lot of the design choices there, even though he's relatively early in the set of releases that they made, I think he stands up. And yeah, I think he that position of War Master, I think he holds very well.
Yeah.
So I think he's up there. Could he be switched with Magnus for all the reasons you said? Yeah, probably could in brackets.
That's fair enough.
There.
Yeah, I think it's just so hard to pick. Like the top 7 or 8 could have been.
Yeah, I agree.
Any kind of order. Well, no, sorry. I think 2 to 8 for me could have been any order almost.
Oh wow, your number 1 is sacrosanct.
I think so. Yeah, like I did kind of question myself on it a few times and go, is it there? Is it really that one? Anyway, your number 4.
Dawn,
blimey.
It's way up there for me because again, I think it captures the model.
Sure.
I'm quite. There's 3 on there that have got more static poses, really static poses.
Yeah.
Morgar, Dawn, Gilliman. I feel his is the best.
Yeah.
In terms of representing what that model is about,
Fair
and
enough.
I thought it was the best execution of a static model.
I can understand that completely.
Your 4?
Yeah, I've talked about Dawn. My 4 is Magnus.
Yeah, I can see him being easily
fantastic model.
Yeah.
It's fantastic and different, and that always helps, I think. My number 3 is, I'm trying to remember now, there's not many left, Alfarius.
As high as that?
Yeah,
That really
there's
surprises me.
something about him. You're right that the problem is you have to make him stand out because he's a Primarch.
Of course, yes, you
I
couldn't
think
do him as a regular Marine, yeah.
he's
But I'm just
different.
surprised he's quite as on it, particularly the backpack. I think it's the backpack that I
Okay,
quite
yeah.
like the helmet
Oh,
and I
that's
like the
quite nice.
armor.
I quite like the Hydras on there, though, the Hydra heads.
Well, kinda, but it just feels a bit 40k
That
chaos. You know what I mean?
right, okay. Yeah. The scales on the armor are amazing.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Love
The
that on the
the
Terminators as
helmet
well.
is funky as.
Yeah,
The weapon is again completely different. The pose is so different. Like,
there's a
um,
cruelty in that pose. Oh my
yeah,
god,
and there's
I
a
didn't need to look at these. This might be where the rumored box set might go towards some Alpha Legion.
sure there is and with the base with the Space Wolf on there, there's the no, I can't let you live kind of
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
going on. Um, what a model! Like,
That's why he's
it
upper mid
just
table for me. It
stands
does have
out.
a lot of badass elements to it. Yeah.
I do think for me there is that, like, having looked at this now, I think my number one actually as well, um, Alfarius and Magnus being two out of those, well, three out of those four when we get to it, being quite different.
Mm.
I think there's an element of, okay, Lorgar, Guilliman, and Dawn are all standing there. Okay, right, cool. This one's doing something different. I think that maybe spoke to me more than I realised at the time.
Mm.
Um, but that's cool.
There's a very interesting element with Alpharis, which I hadn't noticed before. If you look on the Forge World photos,
Yeah.
the painted model, the position of the head is quite different to the position
To
of the head
yeah,
where he's in the resin, and the painted one looks way better in my opinion.
it
I
looks
think the
much
resin
more
version much more
menacing.
intentful. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like this is about to go through you,
I
and
agree.
I know
I
what I'm
such
doing.
a shame that Rob's not working for Forge World. Like, that model is just amazing.
Yes, and presumably he did some of the other Alpha Legion elements because they're very
He
cool as
did
well.
the Terminators, I think.
Mm.
Did he do the others? Can't
Dynac's
remember now.
cool.
Yeah, can't remember exactly what he did. Because they don't always work on everything from that.
Mm.
But yeah, no, fantastic. Okay, that was my three. What is your
My
three?
3 is the Lion.
Cool. Yeah, I can. Yeah,
He could have easily been in number 2.
sure. Yeah, yeah, he is a fantastic model. He's big as well, and he like beefy,
Yeah.
imposing. So my number two, I'm going to jump in here, is Perturabo.
Mm. Wow, I love that we're at equal ends of the scale.
And
Interesting.
again,
Right.
I wonder if an element of this is Neil's model, um, which is fantastic. I like kind of the head. I kind of understand what you mean with the head,
I've got a real
but
problem with the head. It
but there's
just.
that there's a grim kind of, he's taking pleasure in what he's doing.
Mm,
Um, but not a pleasure per se, but he's satisfied in what he's doing.
mm,
I understand the cables. I can see why people don't like them. Um, he's just this solid chunk of death.
mm.
Um,
Or it's war as a machine, isn't it?
yeah,
It's the
and
mechanistic,
yeah, and
particularly.
although the base is big, it doesn't bother me, which I think helps a lot. That it just doesn't
I
bother me
find
that
it
much.
really, really awkward. I really
I
do.
think he's slightly off center doesn't help people's
Yeah.
perception of him because he's off center on that base. But there's something about him. He's just, and maybe it's the character coming through as well, like, yeah, particularly Siege, Perturabo. But there's something about this chunky lad. And again, I think on another day he could really drop. But I think just at the moment I'm kind of digging him.
I don't know why I can't get over the base. I just find
That's
it
fair. Yeah,
actually
that's fair enough.
diminishes the model, and I feel it shouldn't. I feel it shouldn't bother me the way it does. And I want to try and overlook it, and I can't. I'm looking at it now, and you're like, "Oh my god, it looks like it's about to topple off the bloody thing."
Yeah,
I
there is
just
an
find
element
it
of
really
that.
weird.
Um,
I do. I think the bullet casings is very cool.
Yeah, I
I'm,
think that
I'm
is a
on
big
board with
help.
that.
The bullet casings,
Yeah,
whilst he's
that's
holding
cool.
that hammer as well, the hammer looks great
Uh huh.
in his hand. And then I think different surfaces, different textures on the surfaces,
Yeah.
all helps. And it's all like there's nothing flashy here.
No.
It's all
The
functional.
Khan is at number 2 for me. He's
Cool.
jumped
Yeah.
straight in at number 2 for all the reasons we talked about.
Yeah. Groovy. So that leaves you with
Sanguinius at number 1,
Golden
somewhat
Wonder.
predictably for people who
Yeah.
know me. But it did what it. I had a conversation
Does
with.
do what it was set out to do.
Well, exactly. I had a conversation with Sam Egan at one of the weekenders when he was really talking about what ideas he'd had for Sanguinius, and particularly how he felt an enormous amount of pressure because there was such expectation on Sanguinius of all of them. And he was referencing these sort of birds of prey and obviously classical artwork and things. And I thought the way he's captured that, and you cut right to the core of it, which is interesting because I hadn't really grasped this. Him without the scenic base is a bit of a
Loses
problem. It
gravitas.
does lose quite a lot, actually.
I've just
I
looked
hadn't
up.
quite appreciated that.
Oh wow! I've just looked up. I googled imaged it, and the first thing that came up is obviously a recasting site. But it
First
does
thing, wow.
pretty much the first link that came up on images, because it's like $50 or something stupid like that. But it's got a picture of the base, and I forgot because it's got a brute on the base, and brutes are big.
They are,
But it
and I think
adds
it
to the
makes
story.
so much more
Makes a
sense.
difference.
It
Yeah.
makes the pose make more sense than it does on its own.
I think
I don't mind it on its own, but
had I looked at that picture when I was doing this, he could easily be in my top 3 or 4. Like, and on another day, Perturabo could be down in the like double digits
yeah,
almost.
quite, yeah.
Like, and I could easily do that. These things do swap around.
And interestingly, it's only through our conversation here, Magnus could easily actually have jumped up almost into my top
exactly
2 or 3,
Uh,
actually.
so the one thing is, so I went into this and I was like, right, Ferrus Manus is the best Primarch. Simple as that.
I
Cool. No
assumed
worries.
Ferrus was going to be the best.
And then I had to kind of go, but is he? Is this one better? I was like, oh yeah, maybe. Oh yeah, maybe. Oh yeah. No, I was like, no, Ferrus Manus is the best Primarch model. Something about it. I don't quite know exactly what it is. I think it's the combination of. I love the pose. It has to be looked at from slightly above.
Yes.
I do agree with that. Like you could change the base if you wanted to have him flatter, because I don't like the fact he's leaning up. That's the one thing I don't like about it. The face and the head are great. The backpack is kind of funky and cool and very different. I like the arms actually because again they provide something different. And then if you were to look at photos of someone swinging a hammer as hard as they could trying to break someone's back, it's that. It's just it feels like he's trying to smash Fulgrim into about 15
I
million
agree with
parts
that
with
completely.
far too much anger. Like he's
There's a
not.
rage in it, yeah.
Yeah. That just the flow of energy through the model looks
I do
perfect.
disagree with the backpack. I think the backpack is a little awkward in terms of that, but I totally agree with you. I also like the echoes of cataphracti armor. I think that's quite cool. And because I think the idea of these being sort of prototypes and then rolled out in a lesser form. And I totally agree with you about the flow of energy through it.
And again, like that flow of energy, like, okay, so who else is striking? The lion is about to strike, just in a completely different way. Fulgrim's coming down with one blow, but he's the only one who's really like that, like full-blooded into the attack. Like even Angron's not actually striking out; he's just killed them and run forwards. No, Ferrus
the only one who could even be remotely doing that the same way is, well, maybe, but yes, I suppose I was thinking more Alfarius even, but he's poised.
Yeah, but that's not there's not the he's just going to stab him about 3 inches
in the back,
right?
No less.
Ferrus is the one, like even the lion, right? The lion's going to swing that sword, yeah, and decapitate that bloke.
He isn't mid swing.
No, and he isn't putting everything into it.
No,
like he's going to put enough into it to kill him, right? And he will kill him. But Ferrus is just like, this is it. Like, this is my everything.
This is everything I've got. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to smash the hell out of you, and he didn't. But yeah, I know. Every time I look at Ferrus, it's like, yeah, he's the man. He is the man.
I think it says a lot, doesn't it? I think that little journey we've taken through the models.
Indeed, it took quite a while. So what I think we'll do is
I was going to
we'll make
suggest the
sure we
same.
save that, and we'll have to come back to this topic in just a little bit. And thank you for listening to another episode of The Imperial Truth. As you may tell, we got halfway, well, not even halfway through, a third of the way through our Primarchs discussion, and we will continue it next episode, talking about background and rules and then collecting them together. And quite frankly, we've got it wrong already. So, it's a futile thing to do, but it is fun. So I hope you appreciate that we're just trying to have a bit of fun with it. I am absolutely expecting people to tell me how wrong I am in various elements of that. And you know what? That's cool. We don't mind that at all. It's probably quite fitting that we're going to be finishing that up on the 150th episode anyway. So, as I say, next episode we'll be back with all that. If you do have feedback, you want to get a hold of us, you can message on the on Facebook. You can comment on the episode thread. You can message us on Twitter at Childofang at Imperial_truth. You can email Greg at TheImperialTruth.com, and I can pass those on to Howard as needed, or we can discuss them on the show, or whatever is the right thing to do there. If you've got any other ideas for things to go over, suggestions along that line for topics, as I say, please do feel free to get in touch with us, and we can kind of take it all on board and see what's going on. Please remember, if you want to support the show, we have a Patreon. The links are in the show notes, or you can find the Imperial Truth on Patreon. We have a coffee account as well, if you wish to just one-off donate or whatever through you prefer that to Patreon. And we have the link for Element Games if you want to go and purchase some stuff on a Saturday morning, particularly at 10 o'clock when it all comes through. If you're an Adeptus Titanicus player, we've got the book, trade book already out. Hopefully we've got the Titan, the War Master, being available through third parties. I'm not sure about that yet, but you can head to Element and use that link, and it all gives the show a bit of a kickback, helps keeps the lights on, all that jazz. But we're going to keep it really short and sweet this one. My voice, my thing might be coming down with something. So, hopefully we'll be back in a few weeks with some more hobby progress, and you never know, even maybe a game with a little bit of luck. But until next time, you have been listening to The Imperial Truth.